Envision busting your hump inside a lethal tomb for nearly a century merely to gain one measly attribute before becoming a human pancake. This represents the tragic and miserable life of poor Yukito. He wasted decades as a weakling low-tier explorer whom everyone treated like yesterday's trash, getting ditched as a sacrifice while others leveled up. He croaked in total isolation without a soul around, burdened by the massive regret of failing to heal his ailing mother before his clock stopped. However, his initial run was such a cosmic joke that the governing logic of the world suffered a total hardware meltdown. The universe respawns him 7 decades back into history, handing over a gargantuan apology gift of maxed out fortune stats. Every smack he lands now triggers an automatic red number explosion, making him the most overpowered warrior to ever breathe. A cluster of exotic blobs is hanging out in some grass, causing onlookers to freak out because a quartet of shiny metallic uses appeared. Our hero lurks behind some bark to remain invisible, realizing that if these wiggly prizes escape, he will ruin his best shot at glory. Suddenly, an unexpected sight stuns him, making his jaw drop further than a glitching gravity physics engine. A random madman charges recklessly into the fray like a headless chicken, ignoring the frantic warnings to slow down given by the hidden observer. Moments later, a giant laser of doom slices the monsters into bits, landing a devastating blow that looks more like an orbital strike. The onslaught continues as he delivers a rapid sequence of max damage strikes, causing the interface to have a seizure from all the combat notifications. Feast your eyes on that chunky chrome blade, held by Yukito, who is currently radiating major main character energy after that massacre. Yet another flashy damage pop-up appears, proving the man is literally incapable of doing anything besides dealing catastrophic pain. The protagonist has developed a terrifying gaze, peering extremely locked in and frankly like someone you should never borrow money from. Witness the ultimate loot drop, as the notification box verifies he snagged legendary armor, metal gloves, and boots in one go. He looms over the puddle of his victims as reward windows fill his vision, showcasing the type of luck that requires a pact with demons. Nearby fighters are having total mental breakdowns, baffled by his ability to trigger massive damage with every single swing, which is honestly quite hilarious. Some bystander is screaming about Yukito's insane fortune, which is understandable since pulling 3 legendary items is like hitting the Powerball jackpot twice. Our man checks his inventory and confirms every piece is top grade, likely questioning if the server administrators are asleep at the wheel. Gazing at his stats, he believes his karma is finally balancing out after his previous tragic run, feeling like a chosen warrior rather than a fluke. We then see a flashback of Yukito as a dusty octogenarian bottom-tier scrub, reminding us just how much his past existence sucked eggs. Enter the Tokyo Crawl Zone, Level 1, where skyscrapers meet hellish monsters beneath a sky the color of a very angry tomato. A muscular fellow waves his smartphone around to broadcast the impending doom, shouting for everyone to witness the arriving beasties, which is quite the bustle. His mobile display depicts a scale lizard wrecking the town, with a headline stating the world is toast and there are 0 safe zones. Chaos erupts as civilians flee in terror, rightfully scared out of their wits because the basement monsters are planning a hostile takeover. A cocky youngster starts scolding the elderly version of our hero for poking blobs, assuming the senior citizen is just killing time during the apocalypse. The jerk shoves the geezer away and stumps off, while veteran Yukito peers at distant puddles with the look of a man holding an ace. While everyone scrambles away, this elderly gentleman strolls toward the beasts like he stopped caring about survival a long time ago. Some loudmouth calls him a useless fossil with stagnant stats, heartlessly abandoning the poor guy to face certain doom alone. The jerk shoves Yukito aside, insulting his frail frame and comparing him to the pathetic slimes that fill the dungeon. Poor Yukito hits the dirt, looking exhausted and beaten, while his blade lies discarded in the grime beside his buddy. He reaches for his weapon, pondering the decades spent as a bottom-tier adventurer while the world moved on without him. The camera highlights his weathered face, showing the deep exhaustion of a man who gave his all for 0 reward. Observing other slaughter slimes, he mulls over how some folks are born lucky while he remains a permanent underdog. A rude adventurer hacks a slime nearby, barking at the old man to move, displaying 0 manners for his elders. Seeing that adventurer gain a stat boost, Yukito sighs, knowing any late upgrade would be way past its expiration date. Watching a heal amend a teammate, he realizes that rapid growth is just a standard Tuesday for everyone else. Yukito lingers in the dark, staring at his shaking hands and wondering why he endured such a grueling path. Check these tragic stats. While level 98 Yukito Takahashi suffers with a pathetic strength score of merely 5 points. His expression hardens with resolve, fueled by a stubborn refusal to quit before he reaches that elusive level cap. Flashbacks show his younger self training like a lunatic, swinging his blade until the very ace seemed to fracture. He was once a ferocious beast, pushing his physical boundaries until the raw intensity in his eyes signaled doom. Reaching level 98 by grinding weak mobs is a feat of insanity that only this persistent soul would attempt. Back in reality, he swings his sword with remaining vigor, creating an energy arc that looks surprisingly professional today. Standing solitary in a vast field at dusk, he presents a lonely image of a man defined by endless grinding. Suddenly his blade snaps into pieces, hitting the meadow floor like a very ominous and unwelcome piece of news. The dark screen flashes a simple status alert, confirming he is merely 1 measly level from the ultimate cap. He mutters to himself about needing one final jump, convinced that reaching the top will validate his lifelong misery. Turning toward 2 incoming slimes, he prepares to fight with nothing but his bare knuckles and sheer stubborn spite. He sprints forward with a frantic gaze, looking far more predatory and monstrous than those blobs of gelatin ever could. Grappling the slime with his hands, he yells about being a late bloomer, which is honestly just peak delusional behavior. He starts gnawing on the slime, cementing his status as the most desperate adventurer to ever walk this earth, tearing chunks out with his teeth while the creature absorbs him as a genuinely gross and raw heartbreaking spectacle. The tight shop reveals his bloodshot eye as he breaks through his linnet, signaling the climax of this saga. The blue ore envelopes his frame as the level up text appears, leaving him weeping in total, long-awaited disbelief. The system chirps a congratulatory note for hitting max level, while he reaches toward the interface with trembling fingers. Emotionally wrecked, he begs the cold system to finally grant him the glory he earned through endless painful years. The guy collapses onto the grass while begging any deity with an earshot for mercy, but then a notification informs him his brawn grew by a single point. After hitting max level, his power ticked up from 5 to 6, and that pathetic upgrade is the grand prize, which is to be a cosmic rank. Observe that pathetic gauge, because wasting decades for one measly attribute point is definitely the developers giving him a massive middle finger. Reality strikes like a freight train as he whispers that this cannot be happening, and frankly, I would be losing my mind too after 80 years of work. Curling into a miserable heap, he bellows at the heavens about his empty pockets, suffering a psychological collapse that is honestly quite relatable. The man is scratching his skin in absolute distress, given all his blood and sweat resulted in a prize that is literally just a punchline. Shadows close and wild beasts circle his shattered frame, and he simply surrenders, admitting that his journey has reached a dead end. An enormous and horrific fiend stands above him, suggesting his miserable adventure is about to conclude in a particularly messy fashion. This armored behemoth is gargantuan, making the elderly Yukito look like a piece of lint while he waits for the final blow to land. He glares at the Reaper while labeling his existence the most pathetic run in history, perishing with a soul weighed down by heady remorse. Memories depict him soaking in a storm while everyone sneers, reminding us he was a village reject that nobody ever bothered to respect. Guilt gnaws at him for failing to rescue his mom, proving his life was a dumpster fire both in the wild and within his own house. The draped corpse appears on screen, marking the day his biggest supporter died, and he still lugs that emotional baggage around like a heavy suitcase. The damaged picture of his sibling's nuptials pops up, and he takes the blame for crushing her joy, which shows he had zero luck. He shuts his lids permanently and asks if the nightmare is finished, because after such a sucky life, dying is basically a promotion. An oversized talon crushes him with a gross squelching sound, ending the dreams of a guy who just wanted a little victory. Crimson fluid sprays against the horizon as the beast delivers the final strike, making it look like curtains for our hero, or perhaps not. A sterile screen appears with a misspelled notification of his death, yet while most tales stop there, we are just warming up. Suddenly the interface starts flickering because a massive bug was found in his stats, as if the universe itself thinks his death was stupid. The software is installing an update and rewinding his timeline, which is basically a massive technical glitch that serves as a second chance. A glowing medical rhythm begins beating in the void, indicating his resurrection, though the location and time remain a complete mystery for now. An invisible stat just triggered, granting him nearly 10,000 bonus points as a formal apology, which is a pretty sweet way to say sorry. A contemplative noise reaches his ears while a hazy person stands by a desk, and his vision is still messy as he regains consciousness. A speaker offers their best wishes, while he struggles to understand the situation and why he isn't currently sitting in a demon's stomach. A receptionist beams at him while presenting a tray with a license, declaring that his career as an explorer starts today, which means he is right back where he started. Our boy Yukito is a teenager again, forking at her with wide eyes as he realizes he just pulled off a massive time travel stunt. The lady behind the desk asks if he's okay, because he's currently standing still and looking like he just witnessed a horning. He recovers his senses and lets out a shaky chuckle, grabbing his identification and thanking her while pretending he's just a regular beginner. Stepping away from the booth, he keeps his eyes glued to his device, unable to fathom that he has actually returned to the past. The guy is perspiring heavily while attempting to maintain his cool, realizing that if this is legitimate, he can rewrite his entire destiny. He eyeballs the smartphone calendar, seeing mid-March of year 10/032 at precisely 10:03 a.m., realizing it matches his guild sign-up morning perfectly. He recalls that bizarre notification regarding a bones buff right before he bit the dust, praying it wasn't some drug-induced fantasy. He sucks in a big lungful of air, muttering for the interface to display his stats, curious if those compensatory points truly remained. His level 1 information box materializes, where he initially assumes the numbers look just as terrible as they did decades ago. Hold on, he spots a detail near the bottom frame, wondering if he can drag the display further down to find more secrets. A huge jolt of electricity courses through him upon seeing the hidden info down below, his iris expanding while catching the blue glow. He howls internally while processing the bizarre values, specifically the fortune attribute which has broken beyond all logical boundaries, basically making him a dud of chance. Look at that probability index. Yukito is currently glaring at his digital display, questioning if this overpowered upgrade has been active the whole duration. He starts brainstorming that this unique feature must represent some fabled trait from his earlier existence, partly trusting his own vision. And honestly, me either. The guy contemplates 7 decades of being the most unlucky soul ever, finding the contrast between his wrinkled past face and this youthful mug quite trippy. It is finally time to experiment with these favorable odds, so he exits the hall, eager to slaughter some dewy creatures and see if life is easy mode. He arrives at the Tokyo dungeon entrance level, commonly titled Indelible Footprints, which appears to be a tranquil field of grass despite its true nature. He scans for combat prey, standing with a posture that suggests he has much more field experience than a standard level 1 recruit. He discovers a handful of common blue blobs hanging out in the weeds, finding this familiar spot quite cozy after years of repetitive grinding. Suddenly, he detects a presence nearby. Reaching for the hilt of his weapon as a large silhouette extends across the vegetation. Yukito spreads his eyelids wide once the identity of the newcomer becomes clear, practically perspiring just from the sheer potential of this encounter. A shiny silver blob has appeared, a creature known for being incredibly hard to find and providing massive amounts of character experience. He thinks back to observing this rare spawn only a single time during his previous 85 years of living, making this current fortune feel quite legitimate. We see a memory of his younger form failing to capture one, mainly because he lacked speed back then, though current circumstances are far better. He understands these monsters provide mountain high level points, yet they are notorious for vanishing the very moment they notice anyone, requiring high speed maneuvers. Yukito pushes off into a sprint, covering the distance in less than a heartbeat, putting him within striking range of the target. He digs his boots deep into the dirt, preparing to execute a slash, with the air humming from the tension as his steel moves into place. A wooden projectile strikes the ground directly in front of him, halting his charge, while some random hunter nearby hollers that the shot was an accident. Yukito is absolutely livid at this point, shouting toward the clumsy idiot, which is understandable since a legendary monster kill was just compromised. The creatures begin hopping away due to the loud ruckus, as it can be surprisingly nimble when things get noisy and hectic. That metallic blob propels itself high into the sky to begin its getaway, but Yukito refuses to give up his precious loot without a fight. He whips his blade through the atmosphere, though the creature is zipping around like a chaotic blur during this frantic chase across the meadow. The slime does a full rotation to avoid his secondary lunge, showing some impressive coordination for an entity essentially made of viscous fluid. Yukito sharpens his intent, his weapon radiating a cerulean ore, while he analyzes the blob patterns to find an ideal gap in its movement. He successfully connects with a parry, hitting the target while it is in the air with a flawlessly executed move, producing a sharp ringing noise. The sword's sharp point neatly finds the heart of the metallic blob, a clean jab that seals the wee beastie's doom. The dewy critter explodes into 1,000 shimmering shards. What a wonderfully satisfying disintegration. 4 levels higher from a single foe. He's gasping for breath, oddly spent but riding that XP wave. His bargain bin begin a sword bit the dust, snapping in two. These shiny slimes are tougher than they look, and rarer too. Hold on a sec, is that a golden shimmer emanating from the dew's remains? This looks like no ordinary loot. His pupils dilate in excited speculation, wondering if his wildest dreams are about to come true as the glow intensifies. Behold, a colossal silver sword. He's not only gained experience, but also snagged a top-tier weapon on his very first swing. This awesome new weapon boasts a massive boost against silver-colored monsters, though it's prone to missing its mark. Yukito figures this is a fantastic start to his fresh beginning. He surveys his surroundings, ready to conquer everything with his shiny new tool, already pondering his next conquest. Strolling into a clearing, he spots 4 silver slimes just chilling, making him question if he's accidentally wandered into a delightful dream. Instead of fleeing, the slimes are charging headlong, hurtling towards him like tiny, polished projectiles. Prepping his new, hefty sword, he frets about its tendency to whiff, facing 4 speedy foes solo. His gaze ignites with that familiar dazzling brilliance, signaling his intent to not let a single one get away. The perfect strike. An energy beam, straight and true, bisects the landscape. He's not just hitting them, he's vaporizing them. He's a blur of unstoppable force, landing precision blows right and left. These slimes have no hope against such incredible fortune. Yukito stands proudly, his gargantuan sword held high, embodying pure power. The skirmish concludes in mere moments. The critical hit notification lingers like a proud emblem. The sheer luck is undeniably the MVP. The very earth is awash in glittering silver treasures, more S-rank goodies than he could possibly need. He beams at his virtual backpack, a colossal grin plastered across his face, knowing his fortunes have finally flipped. For the next 60 minutes, he's a frenzied farming machine, effortlessly felling all in his path. In a charming little cartoon bubble, he's cheerfully dispatching 10 more silver blobs, gleefully demanding another. He's basically the champion of slime vanquishing now. His inventory is bursting with rare finds, shimmering armor, sturdy boots, potent blades. He's completely outfitted for any challenge. Perched on a ridge as twilight descends upon the cavern, he finally embraces the undeniable reality of his astonishing luck. He throws his head back in unrestrained glee, shouting his triumphant announcement. This incredible fortune is real, and it's long overdue. Yukito collapses onto the soft earth, utterly worn out but brimming with a happiness he's never known. He gazes skyward at the drifting clouds, simply savoring this perfect instant, free from an 80-year futile struggle. Reaching a hand towards the warm sun, he's resolved to finally carve out a significant identity. He's got the raw ability. Now he just needs the blueprint. Closing his eyes, his thoughts drift to his cherished family, realizing his mission extends beyond himself. He's determined to bring them joy. Memories surface of his ailing mother in her hospital room and his sister in her elegant wedding gown, the irreplaceable treasures he lost once before. From his position on the ground, he pumps a fist into the air, energized and resolute. This is his second chance to be the savior. He jolts upright, suddenly struck by the realization that his home might have vanished. His internal clock says he's been gone for 7 decades, so a little dazed is expected. The quiet is so peculiar after such a long stretch of not being by himself. He has quite a backlog to tackle. Clutching his trusty blade, he rises, his sole focus now on reaching his abode. That's the ultimate objective. He steps into a brilliant azure portal, ready to be whisked back to the world above. He's a blur through the urban landscape, his heart pounding like a drum solo. Seeing his kin again is all that matters. Yukito is a streak through Tokyo's contemporary thoroughfares, moving so swiftly people might assume a creature is hot on his heels. He pauses before an apartment building that sparks a wave of recognition. It feels like a time capsule just for him. Gasping for air, his pulse thumps a frantic rhythm against his ribs. He gazes at the structure, a touch apprehensive about stepping inside. He ascends the staircase at a snail's pace, trying to jog his memory about which unit belonged to him. The second floor, but the exact room eludes him. Perched on the balcony, he scans the various doorways. Being without a roof over his head for half his existence has clearly taken a toll on his recall. He spots the nameplate, 203, T. Akahashi, and it clicks. Yes, that's indeed room 203. Design, plaid in a glove, tentatively reaches for the doorknob. He's visibly shaking, which is perfectly reasonable considering the circumstances. He attempts to soothe his frayed nerves, but he's a complete bundle of anxiety. This emotional ordeal feels tougher than any monster he fought in the depths. He draws in a final, fortifying breath to steady his composure. He whispers nothing. Convinced he's prepared, he twists the handle and nudges the portal inward. The entrance swings open with a protest, revealing a young woman with flowing locks. Equally taken aback, she greets him with a radiant, friendly grin, instantly recognizing who he is. It's Nozomi, his sister, peering precisely as he remembered her, and she joyfully exclaims, "Welcome home, big brother." Yukito's eyes widen in utter astonishment. Seeing her alive and well is an almost overwhelming sensation. Wordlessly, he surges forward, enveloping Nozomi in a colossal embrace while calling her name. She giggles, utterly perplexed by this sudden burst of affection, and playfully inquires if this is some sort of elaborate jest. She squirms a bit, trying to break free from his grip, but he holds fast, urging her to release her already. They remain locked in an embrace as the sun dips below the horizon. He vows to himself that this time, no one will take them from him. Pepito clutches her tightly, at last reunited with a treasure he cherishes deeply. The crusade to safeguard his family commences now. Yukito settles down with his sister, Nozomi, ready to spill the whole saga of his miraculous return and that ridiculously fortunate stat. Nozomi is utterly gobsmacked, as if she's just discovered her brother moonlights as a caped crusader. She promptly poses a pivotal question: can his newfound luck actually rescue the mother? Yukito takes a cool swig of his beverage and offers a confident nod. He acknowledges the challenge ahead but now possesses the means to achieve it. He sets his glass down with a decisive clink, signifying the launch of his strategic blueprint. The weight of his pledge is considerable, yet he's prepared to uphold it. The narrative shifts to the subsequent day, presenting an opportune moment to ascertain the true value of all that rare plunder. Yukito is back at the adventurer's hub, presenting colossal piles of currency. He's just offloaded his entire silver slime ensemble, and the Clark's door is as slack as ours. Enter the expensive bidding hall, where a radiant citrus jar sits at a price equivalent to several small houses. The patron in the first sequence of chairs announces a multiple million yen offer, as if paying for a light dessert. The supervisor impacts the table with a wooden tool, as a rare status beverage is traded for a huge check. An image appears of a tall medical facility under a blank cyan vault, signaling the onset of the worker shift. He halts in front of a wooden door with a name tag, making a small tapping noise before his next action. Two individuals wait in the clinic passage, while the male holds a high-priced bottle designed to restore optimal health. He identifies himself through the wooden panel, as the entrance piece glides sideways to permit entry to the group. The pair moves indoors, as the small person emerges from behind the larger one with a crescent facial shape. A seated woman occupies the medical cot, holding a palm to her mouth while emitting a dry, rhythmic sound. The male visitor angles his features toward her, standing stationary near the edge of the white cotton bedding. The girl produces a geometric paper box, while the man keeps a significantly more valuable item within his pocket. An older woman discusses the management of currency, unaware that the visitor possesses a high balance of digital coins. He suggests the woman ignore the topic of wealth, while his female companion lifts her heels in high anticipation. The occupant looks forward with a tilted neck, waiting to see what beverage is superior to their arrival presence. He withdraws a shimmering orange vial worth many millions, directing the patient to ingest the contents without delay. The seated figure observes the costly inventory item, having noted that 10 million yen is a high numerical figure. A zoomed visual targets the brown circles in his eyes, as he describes the sequence as a statistical anomaly. The small bottle changes hands, accompanied by the specific friction sound of a cork being lifted from glass. Luminous energy swirls within the amber liquid, indicating its high value as an item designed for cellular restoration. The fluid travels down her throat in one cycle, as the two observers wait nearby without moving their limbs. A circle of light appears around the torso, while her eyelids elevate due to the internal sensation of magic. Tiny droplets form on the brows of the witnesses, as they observe the shift from static to active features. The light dissipates while she straightens her back, mentioning that her torso feels clear and simple to operate. A large quantity of ale leaves the man's lungs, followed by an upward verbal remark regarding the family success. The siblings join their hands in an upward clap, creating an audible noise as they lift their boots together. A small rounded illustration depicts a snack exchange, as the liquid content is identified as having a poor flavor. A professional in a lawn white coat provides a statement, confirming the permanent stop of all internal health ailments. A figure utilizes silver rails for balance, working alongside a staff member in a room with large glass windows. Permission for a resident's return is granted, marking her transition from medical white rooms back to brick housing units. Three figures traverse a concrete path under the sun, stating that the current environment feels like a mental projection. Scattered crumbs and empty wooden bowls rest atop the flat wooden surface, indicating a completed gathering centered around domestic sustenance. A figure wearing a tied fabric protector stands motionless at the stainless steel basin, manipulating plates under the flowing water tap. The individual on the left has raised facial corners, while the character nearby maintains a fixed, horizontal eye line near them. Muscle tension in the face shifts as one person observes the stationary, forward-facing orientation of the other male individual's eyes. The glass bottle with a clear residue rests empty, indicating its chemical contents have been utilized or transferred quite recently. One person rises from a fall-lighted wooden seat, placing the palms firmly upon the horizontal tabletop surface with speed. The discussion centers on a translucent container with specialized properties, placed metaphorically within the verbal exchange of the nearby participants. The glowing electronic box displays sequences of moving pixels, showing individuals in layered armor moving through dark stone corridors together. The screen indicates a digital integer of 50 beneath an icon representing a descending set of stone basement stairs clearly. A woman adjusts her head orientation while focusing on a specific designated text label written on a white piece of paper. Ceramic dishes are dried with a towel as two figures stand in the vicinity of the central residential cooking range. Large digital numbers appear near a depiction of a creature with segmented limb attachments and multiple jointed appendages on screen. A hand points toward a printed geographic representation of lower subterranean levels categorized by increasing numerical values on the map. Two pairs of hands move rhythmically inside a basin filled with bubbles and various pieces of round white dining ware. An individual looks at a chart indicating floor numbers starting from 50 down to the bottom of the schematic diagram. A hand gestures horizontally while the male individual wears a casual cotton shirt with short sleeve openings near the sink. Sound levels fluctuate as a person gestures towards the wall, moving their arms in wide circular motions repeatedly and quickly. Facial features adjust slightly as the male points a finger toward a leather-bound book resting near the square table edge. A silver-tined utensil is buffed with a dry fiber cloth until it reflects light from the overhead electrical Y fixture. Fingers trace patterns on a smooth surface next to a container of orange liquid and 3 empty glass drinking vessels. A sketch depicts a large structural figure composed of stacked stone rectangles and glowing circular elements at its central core. The drawing illustrates a creature with metallic armor plating and a singular red bulb situated in its supraocular region. A small glass vial with green-tinted liquid sits atop a rectangular wooden podium inside the visual data display unit currently. A singular chopstick rests on a porcelain rest, positioned precisely 3 centimeters from the circular edge of the blue plate. A human moves toward the tall metal storage unit intended for low-temperature food preservation, grabbing the rectangular door handle. The individual stares into the white illuminated interior of the cooling cabinet, looking at shelves of organized plastic containers. The thought bubble is represented visually as a hovering cloud shape above the person standing firmly near the tile floor. One person shifts their posture while observing the other individual, who is holding a clear plastic pitcher of brown tea. A clear vessel containing amber-colored fluid is placed upon the counter next to a stack of folded white paper towels. A hand moves horizontally in a dismissive arc as the pair remains situated within the four-walled residential kitchen room environment. We get another close-up of his dashing, self-assured mug. He has mapped out the scheme, secured the good fortune, and is ready to roll. He decants tea into 2 tumblers, the liquid cascading smoothly. He chirps that it is a breeze, acting like the job is already finished. He tells Nozomi he needs to tinker with his gear before diving back into that pit. He is not just strolling inside to wing it. Tiny Nozomi returns, looking befuddled while sipping her brew and asking about his plans. She has zero clue about the deer he is cooking up. The chap raps with a grim, intense shot of Yukito looking quite menacing. He thinks there is always a workaround. That golem bet a brace for impact. Yukito eyes a dusty family portrait, perhaps pondering why he is sweating so hard in this restart. It is a quiet moment before the dungeon crawl. The narrator chirps that surviving the dungeon requires 2 core things. First, you need hardware that does not utterly stink. He is decked out in that S-Rank slime deer, looking like a total boss fight. That silver blade is basically a cheat code at this stage. Mene Nozomi pokes her head in, likely wondering why all this metallic clanking is echoing throughout the house. She frets over his casual threads under the metal, but Yukito has a scheme. You do not need fancy duds when your luck is this busted. He looks slightly sheepish, admitting his true base stats are essentially trash. Indeed, the armor is doing the heavy lifting here. A quick peek at the menu shows level 21, but strength is stuck at a sad level 6. Thank heavens for that 9,999 luck stack carrying him. Standing there fully geared, he realizes he can barely swing that oversized sword without wheezing. Time to boost those pathetic digits. He picks a fresh skill, Mighty Laze Strike. It deals massive damage, but the 30% accuracy makes it a wild gamble for peasants. Nozomi catches on fast. She notes he is heading back down specifically to harvest some stat upgrades. Our target today is the Owl's Crown Broken Forest. It looks like a serene park, but do not let that title trick you. He is hunting a rare dropped-up miracle fruit to juice his stats. Most folks find one annually, but for Yukito, it is an all-you-can-eat buffet. Back at base, the siblings share a sweet moment. Nozomi just wants him to survive, wishes fair given he hunts beasts for a living. She gifts him a packed lunch, rubbing him that he might get stuffed on fruits. Quite the conundrum for a budding hero. Yukito accepts it with a gentle grin. The tasty lunch is the secret ace up any dungeon diver sleeve. The bento box vanishes into the inventory. It is digital now, so fingers crossed it stays crisp and fresh. He bids her farewell and struts out the door while Nozomi waves. This dude has a mother to rescue and a game to shatter. The forest is burning with Udfundi and blowing floor. It looks lovely, but everything here likely craves your demise. He reaches the mouth of the level 5 dungeon. It is time to deploy that silver kid and begin the monotonous grind. The system alerts that he hit the 5th floor, the Owl's Crown. He struts in like he owns the joint, and given that sword, he might. The zone is a starter area swarming with leafy pests. For most, it is a breezy win, but Yukito seeks something precise. He checks his map while staying wary. Even with cheated luck, getting misplaced in a magical wood is a terrible ordeal. He wanders into a silent glade where the timber looks a tad too uniform. He glares into the thicket with a smirk. He knows precisely where the torrent colony is lurking. These monsters are stealth experts, mimicking plain trees until you are within range. Working into a trap here is curtains for newbies. Grabbing a pebble, he knows that disguise is hardly flawless, so it is time to host a fun little round of spot the hidden freak. Launching the stone, he bolts instantly because standing still is basically an invitation for an early funeral in this neck of the woods. The rock thumps into bark, and honestly, those roots look about as natural as a plastic palm tree in a basement. Without warning, the timber starts groaning and sprouts giant wooden arachnid limbs, acting like a budget horror movie jump scare. The tramp reveals its sinister glowing gaze, yet Yukito is already unsheathing his steel, ready to ruin this poor shrub's day. Leaping ahead with intense grit, his weapon shimmers with a neon azure aura as he preps a heavy, wind-up strike. Steel meets timber with a satisfying crunch, sending wood fragments flying everywhere like a chaotic carpentry disaster. A towering beam of radiance cleaves the beast in two, triggering another critical hit pop-up as if the game is desperately fishing for praise. He poses amidst the carnage, completely unbothered, treating these monsters like mere weeds as long as he stays alert for cheat shots. Something shimmering in the weeds catches his gaze, and I real hope my hunch about this loot is actually correct. Bingo, a lucky snack dropped from the very first victim, suggesting the RNG gods are not just grinning but practically handing him the win. He snacks a ruby fruit and chomps down, though the look on his face implies the snack definitely won't earn a Michelin star. Swallowing the bland mush, he figures if it boosts his power, who cares if it tastes like a sad, unseasoned apple. He quickly pulls up his dashboard to witness the glorious math, which is basically the digital version of a gambling addiction. Behold, his power rating creeps up by a single digit. The tiny victory against his current status is a fragile blast cannon. He realizes his bizarre luck turns these rare drops into a literal farm, proving that grinding exploits are the shortcut to absolute glory. The real slog begins now as he spends the next few hours converting this lush grove into a pile of splinters. It is a glorious montage of deforestation, with monsters getting diced like salad while miracle snacks rain down from the heavens. Tiny Yukito pauses to inhale his bento, likely relieved to taste a normal sandwich after a marathon of weird glowing berries. Scanning his progress, he realizes he has hit the area cap, because you really cannot keep camping the beginner pun forever. Feast your eyes on those stat bars, since hitting level 23 finally makes him look less like a squishy novice and more like a hero. Stretching his limbs after a brutal shift, he prepares to call it a day, unaware that trouble is lurking around the corner. A sudden whistling breeze zips past his ear, proving that someone is definitely trying to end his shift with a sharp projectile. He wheels around, pan on his hilt, demanding an explanation, which is fair considering he nearly cored an arrow with his face. The sketchy loser jumps from the gloom, whining about hunting rights like a petulant toddler who just lost his favorite toy. Two more shady goons emerge from the underbrush, looking like bottom-tier dungeon pests who specialize in bullying lone travelers. Yukito remains collected, spotting the lack of badges, which confirms these losers are just street thugs looking for a quick payday. The hooded jerk scoffs, calling him a privileged brat relying on fancy loot, oblivious to the fact that he is mocking his own doom. The yellow-toothed brute leans in with a nasty snarl, demanding the gear off his back if he values his internal organs. The system flashes a reminder that these roaming bandits are total scum who hunt in the dark, making them a very lethal blunder. Zooming in on Yukito's iris reveals zero panic, since he expected these losers eventually but not during his early brunch. Those transients are heckling him hard to trigger a brawl, betting heavy that the lad is moments away from meeting some fresh underwear. Yukito tosses a glance back with total indifference, mentioning their utter absurdity and highlighting how they are eating his precious morning. Pivoting with a chilling stare that humbles the devil himself, he explains clearly that he possesses absolutely zero resources to donate to trash people. That comment definitely struck deep, leaving those drifters absolutely livid and bulging with rage as the dream of simple cash vanishes. The chunky fellow unsheathes his blade and shouts his intent to finish Yukito and loot his corpse, moving from zero to murder rapidly. The guy in the robe starts igniting his magic stick, appearing quite eager to teleport our main man into the next calendar month. Both delinquents sprint ahead simultaneously, assuming the numerical advantage means they have successfully stacked the deck against poor lonely him. Yukito anchors his foot deep into the dirt to spring, proving this is no flight but rather a massive offensive build-up. He zips ahead with such velocity that he resembles a smudge, effortlessly dancing around the large dune's pathetic swing. He focuses on the magic wielder immediately per the basic manual, causing the thug to tremble as the distance evaporates instantly. He triggers a unique strike skill, forcing his blade to vomit a giant tide of sapphire glow across the entire forest. The hefty dude with the shiny tooth twirls while cackling, dismissing the move as garbage due to low hit rates, ignoring his insane stats. He retaliates using a special sting strike technique, gathering amber light for an attempt at an inevitable, supposedly unmissable physical impact. Yukito vaults skyward while his cerulean edge meets yellow steel in a risky clash, though I bank on the lad with high luck. Hovering high, his metallic weapon radiates Asha power during the collision with the golden blade, creating an intense and desperate standoff. Metals meet and a failed contact notification surfaces, suggesting that the outlaw's offensive maneuver was far less accurate than he had initially prayed. Observe the astonishment on the gold-toothed bandit, as he realizes his impact felt like air, forcing him to start leaking heavy perspiration. An enormous ultimate prompt appears during the moment Yukito's chrome edge launches the bulky man like a limp toy, finishing the dispute effectively. The caster is freaking out behind them while a physical wave of indigo force explodes, making him understand they chose a terrible opponent today. Here is a detailed view of the toothy thug suffering, minus his headgear and spitting up fluids, which definitely stings quite a bit. Now he is officially retired, but the dune eating mud while his discarded protected deer wobbles away to hide in the nearby bushes. The wizard is descending into madness while gripping his stick, unable to compute how a low odds ability just completely deleted his entire comrade. Yukito remains stationary with dark eyes that chill the soul, merely whispering a brief command to perform the next phase right now. He looks regal and powerful holding a freshly acquired artifact, wondering if they are officially in a duel now, since you are obviously next. Tight shot on the protagonist appearing quite relaxed despite some minor moisture, suggesting he harbors more secret tricks to reveal fairly soon. Observe his emerald iris as he considers that every single trigger is firing precisely according to his masterful and complex inner scheme. Basically, that maneuver the big guy utilized was tier 25 magic, meaning Yukito handled a high-level dune without actually working very hard. That technique trades 30% output for guaranteed accuracy, but unfortunately for the big guy, our boy has a cheat code for every situation. Credit goes to the metallic slime secretions covering his threads, which mitigate significant harm frequently, making this guy effectively invincible in typical brawls. Due to his enchanted outfit he absorbed barely a third of the total incoming pain, making negative impact actions a delightful melody. The guy stays honest, noting that without his ridiculous fortune, he would likely be sporting a fresh gut wound. Fortunately, he remains the most blessed guy around. That wizard looks absolutely petrified, struggling to process how your martyr got folded with a single strike. Enjoy the front row seat to your own demise, buddy. Our hero proposes a bargain, suggesting that immediate capitulation could earn him some leniency. He clearly possesses a lot more patience than my vengeful self. The spellcaster refuses, fueling a sphere of flames while shouting about how he shouldn't be overlooked. He genuinely believes his distance advantage will save his hide. Yukito holds his gaze, calmly mentioning that approaching is a futile effort. He does not seem bothered by a few spicy sparks or the heat. The kooky Wallach starts giggling, assuming he has cornered a quitting protagonist, while he readies a gargantuan ball of heat for the final blow. Our main character denies any surrender, casually rummaging through his digital backpack as if he were just looking for a cold drink. Our champion reveals a mystical rod while preparing to pit its strategies, informing the sorcerer that such a branch is his preferred instrument for the duel. Out comes a weapon decorated with bright floral and pink petals. It appears more suited for a botanical garden than a brutal cavern brawl. A detailed view of the floral one confirms its aesthetic charm, though it certainly clashes with the rugged image of a top-tier fighter. That magic user is howling with laughter at the garden accessory, convinced that our main character has officially gone off the deep end. He taunts the guy, questioning whether he realizes how silly he looks holding that branch, which is a massive error in judgment. Friend, our hero stays calm, acknowledging that he knows all about the chaotic and erratic branch. He scavenged it from a barren tree monster that lacked any snacks. Now it is pulsing with strange icons and glowing glyphs. Things are getting funky. The sorcerer dismisses him as a total noob, apparently convinced that his gaming knowledge far exceeds the expertise of our lucky protagonist. The interface labels it a rare find, yet most players view it as volatile trash since the effects are completely chaotic and unreliable. Peep the online feedback. Even the message boards describe it as globally recognized junk. Everyone avoids it because it is essentially a broken tool. Inspect the statistics. There is a 40% failure rate and a measly 9% shot at decent spells. Every activation is a pure casino bet. The villain assumes the early blade stunt was a fluke, believing that lightning cannot strike twice when dealing with such erratic RNG mechanics. Our fighter raises the floral branch's runic rings begin to rotate, knowing that controlling the outcome is usually impossible, but he is built different. The robed antagonist wastes no time, conjuring a mid-tier sphere of intense heat. That glowing orb looks incredibly dangerous and ready to pop. He gloats that even if a miracle occurs, his own blaze is superior due to his 50-point power buff. This dude loves hearing himself torque. Witness that unsettling smirk. He's already throwing a victory party for a battle he has definitely not finished winning quite yet. He declares that the rookie fortune has finally run dry. I really wish for him to choke on those arrogant statements very soon. The villain hurls a thermal projectile while screaming for his foe to succumb, sending a colossal meteor of flame sailing over the clearing. As the haze dissipates, our hero remains standing perfectly still, looking entirely uninjured and somewhat exhausted while noting that the trigger finally worked. He offers a playful wink while gearing up for action, announcing he's all set to deliver a serious world of her. The floral rod shines with a crazy radiance, spraying multicolored icons everywhere. The situation is clearly not normal. The tiny spark begins to manifest, yet it is instantly overridden by glitching multicolored power, indicating that a massive disaster is arriving shortly. Good heavens, the gigantic space rock just materialized in the heavens above. That unpredictable stick actually delivered the goods when it mattered. The ground literally splits wide open under Yukito's shoes from the force. That giant burning rock is about to absolutely ruin someone's afternoon. Yukito points his delicate flower staff skyward, somehow controlling a world-ending catastrophe. This level of absurdity truly defies logic. A close-up shot of the character in question, the true harbinger of chaos. The meteor crashes down and everything vanishes into a flash of pure white light. The sheer magnitude of the resulting blast is absolutely terrifying. Debris flies everywhere, fire engulfs the land, and utter chaos takes over. It is complete, total, unrestrained destruction. The mage gets launched by the shockwave, still screaming about his pathetic fireball. Yeah, I think your magic just got completely uplast, pal. He's in total disbelief, realizing that summoning a meteor is an incredibly rare spell with almost non-existent chances. At least for those who follow the rules. Anyway, the towering wall of fire and glowing runes dominates the panel. It genuinely looks like a scene pulled from the literal end of days. The mage tries to cling to denial, yelling that this must be an illusion spell. Sorry, friend, but that intense heat is undeniably real. Just look at his expression. He's finally realizing exactly how badly he screwed up. The Inferno's glow reflects in his wide, petrified eyes. Direct impact. The colossal pillar of fire completely swallows the mage as he screams for his life. The tight shot captures his final shriek as a blast engulfs him. That is an extremely unpleasant way to go. And, oh boy, he actually wet himself from sheer terror right before getting incinerated. Talk about a completely humiliating final act. The flames continue to rage, turning the entire forest floor into a high-powered convection oven. Take a look at that enormous crater. It looks like a small nuclear weapon detonated right there. The forest is simply gone. The mage is lying face down in the smoking rubble, thoroughly burned and extra crispy. He's still groaning, though, so he might miraculously still be alive. Yukito looks down at the cheap staff, which is snapped cleanly in half. I guess advanced magic is too much for a literal stick to handle. He looks slightly pensive, perhaps wondering if he might have been just a little bit heavy-handed with his approach. He casually tosses a ruined staff over his shoulder and walks away, offering a quick apology. He's so nonchalant about it, it's almost cold-blooded. He stands there in the smoke looking like a complete boss, claiming he was just incredibly lucky. Yeah, no kidding, buddy, you just broke the game's difficulty curve. Yukito stands in the middle of his self-made wasteland, looking back at the two vanquished wonders. He secured the victory, but it appears his work isn't fully complete yet. He glances at the thoroughly charred remains of the mage and the bruised gold-toothed guy. Even though they are clearly criminals, he knows he can't abandon them in the middle of the dungeon to rot. It's definitely a hassle, but he determines he must carry them back to the surface to face justice. He looks up at the ceiling, already dreading the extremely long trek back while dreading two extra bodies. In this cute little chibi panel, Yukito works on tying up the criminals securely. He absolutely won't risk them waking up and trying something sneaky on the way out. He stands over the now completely hogtied duo with a look of quiet satisfaction, believing that should finish things up. He's ready to finally put this whole confrontation behind him. We get a little loading screen showing Shibai Yukito moving from the 5th level all the way back up to the 1st. He's got his 2 packages in tow, making slow but steady progress toward the exit. By the time he actually gets back to the city, it's already completely dark outside. He hands the 2 wonders over to the authorities, who look completely shocked to see a rookie bringing in 2 high-value targets. Yukito is absolutely exhausted after providing his testimony to the police. He's rubbing the back of his neck, desperate to go home and collapse after a very long day. The next morning, Yukito heads back to the Adventurers Guild to make his official report about the incident. He looks noticeably more refreshed as he walks through those sliding doors. The receptionist instantly spots him and calls out his name. It looks like word travels incredibly fast when you capture a pair of notorious criminals. She greets him with a cheeky gesture, explaining the grapevine already carried the news from the fuzz, as rookie seldom cause such havoc. He enthusiastically jingles a golden dinner bell while whooping, making certain the entire tavern knows he is the new hotshot in town. A silver trinket is presented on a tray, which acts like a legendary skip button for the normal, agonizingly slow process of leveling. Staring at the metallic disc with saucer-sized eyes, he mumbles about possible mistakes because he never dreamed of moving up this quickly. The engine reveals that Silva status is essentially a grindfest, usually taking 3 full years of toil even for the prodigy types. Traditionally, one must cough up mythical loot and squash titanic monsters, navigating a lethal marathon that most quit before the finish. Beyond those hurdles, one needs guild brownie points, yet somehow he seems to have totally cheated the boring prerequisite grind entirely. The receptionist confirms the command is set in stone, revealing those creeps see court were high-tier members of the nasty Red Bulls. That antisocial herd of villains has been a chronic migraine for everyone, so wiping them out made him the guild favorite overnight. She looks mesmerized that he smashed them without help, noting that most veterans would rather eat sand than encounter those ruffians nearby. Then she drops a knowledge nuke, explaining those dunes were silver level themselves, which makes him leak sweat from sudden, retrospective terror. Recalling the scrap, he realizes the margin was slim. Since minus his broken luck and premium equipment, he was basically dog food. He bashfully accepts the silver badge while attempting to look slick, muttering about being lucky, which is factually his entire life story. She commands him to drop the shy routine because he owns this rank now, eagerly anticipating his adventures beyond the starting zones. Status windows show that while bronze kids stop at floor 10, silver legends can plunder 30 levels deep, unlocking his main quest line. He hangs the silver medal around his neck, finally internalizing his new power level while plotting exactly how to exploit this opportunity. He tells her his intent is to clear floor 20 next, aiming his blade at an old robot and some magic health soda. She vows her support but issues a grim alert, mentioning floor 20 is known as a meat processing plant for overly ambitious warriors. She warns against solo dives into that pit of despair, since the monsters that view silver ranks as a tasty afternoon snack. Bowing politely with a word of thanks, he smiles to himself because he possesses an unfair advantage that nobody else can see. Working through the busy guild hall, he feels the silver weight and marvels at how this timeline is moving way faster than before. He ponders how those random wonders were actually useful idiots, accelerating his progression schedule by several months with zero extra effort. A voice from the shadows calls out for attention, stopping him in his tracks as he wonders if someone wants another fight. A dusty gentleman in a formal tuxedo and topper approaches, looking like he forgot to die decades ago while using a stick. He asks if he is the warrior who crushed those bandits, his eyes blazing with an intensity that demands an instant confession. Paper rewards display the ugly faces of Yamada and Hashimoto, killers wanted for theft with bounties large enough to retire on. He simply claims they started the beef, so he had to finish it, downplaying his role to avoid any unnecessary heroic drama. The elder looks visually smaller as the truth sinks in, showing a mess of heartbreak and sheer relief upon his tired features. He suddenly grabs the boy with a Herculean grip and bellows his thanks, vibrating with such raw emotion that he terrifies him. Yukito stands there trembling, perspiring as he tries to process this unprompted therapy session, only managing to make a quiet squeak. Gramps clarifies that these goons were his boy's killers, so he shreds that bounty poster while finally venting decades of stored-up bitterness. He mentions catching scumbags even the lore feared, giving a mourning parent that sweet taste of closure he desperately craved. Our boy Yukito acts cool, claiming he was merely doing standard hero stuff since he still finds genuine praise pretty awkward. The elder offers a heavy, reverent bow, his voice thick with thanks during this grand celebration of a mission well handled. A tight shot zooms in on the kid's pupil as he studies the old-timer, noting how strange these heartfelt vibes really feel. Tears of joy flow freely as he promises a progress report at his son's tomb, proving closure is worth way more than silver. As the senior leaves, the lad recalls 8 decades of thankless grinding in the shadows, where 0 people ever expressed any gratitude. Examining his palms, a slight grin finally makes an appearance, and he admits to himself that being appreciated is actually pretty swell. However, his brain bounces back to reality, realizing that current trends point toward world-ending chaos before he hits old age again. He contemplates using his cheat codes from the future to derail major disasters, shouldering the whole planet's heavy baggage right now. Checking off the delusion, he calls himself a silly slime enthusiast for overreaching, fully aware he's no legendary savior quite yet. He messes up his hair, effectively ending the edgy internal monologue, and refocuses on the problem sitting directly under his nose. Tensing his fist with fresh grit, he focuses on saving his dear mom above all else. Priorities first, so he steps out to crush floor 20 plus any monsters the labyrinth decides to hurl in his direction. Cut to a shady, breeze-covered lair where nasty blades clutter a jagged rock slab, dimly illuminated by one flickering camp light. A massive, beefy appendage smashes a table, tearing the tools, as some angry Jew bellows like he lost his favorite toy. The big boss simply can't grasp how a total greenhorn wrecked Yamada and Hashimoto, so he broods in the gloom. He panics because failing to retaliate ruins their reputation for scaring adventurers, which is basically their only good marketing tactic. Plus, missing the collection money means he has to grovel to the corporate overlords, leaving him squeezed like a cheap grape. Reaching out with a steady grip, he snags a nasty curved dagger, looking like a chef who specializes in human ingredients. Giving a mugshot of the newbie, he growls the name Yukito Takahashi as if it were a flavor of poison. He skews the photo to the wood, promising an early grave for our hero, who definitely just triggered a mid-bus encounter. A close-up reveals a glowing, crimson eye brimming with pure hatred, signaling that his only hobby now is murderous revenge. His remaining peep squints at his mark, showing he is plotting various surgical ways to finish this pesky little newcomer. Swapping to a fresh edge, he vows to stop being lazy, refusing to repeat the dumb blunders of his useless minions. Scrolling through the intel, he notes the kid won a 2-on-1 scrap, proving he is clever enough to spot actual potential trouble. Towering over the cramped room, he admits the shrimp is surprisingly decent for someone fresh off the tutorial boats. Donning a stylish white hood, he whispers about having plenty of nasty tricks up his sleeve to handle this annoying problem. Cackling while masking his mug, he notes how tragic it was for the kid to pique his interest, officially kickstarting the next saga. Our protagonist scales the 15th floor, the jagged desert of empty pride that resembles a navigation nightmare, though he simply sees it as another boring shift. These passageways twist and contract, featuring deadly drops that would turn a novice into a flat pancake. Yukito wears sturdy hiking footwear, ready to tread upon the precarious mountain dirt. Exploring as a squad is a total headache because the trail is thinner than a toothpick. He watches a crew go separate ways, confirming that working solo is the logical tactic. Yukito views his notes, stating the 15th floor remains a hub for crime since shadows are everywhere. He enters a chaotic barren land, clutching his weapon as his eyes scan forward. He acts fast, swinging a massive silver tool into a beast, causing stones and debris to scatter. This guy does not just clear maps, he basically does high-impact landscape gardening. He keeps his soldiery pace, climbing vertical stones with minimal effort. If someone wants to gain experience points rapidly, this rookie setting fits the bill perfectly for a lone player. Yukito finds this arena ideal for an independent fighter with no squad around. Without allies to trip over or folks stealing his treasures, he fulfills his solo quest fantasy. He tightens his grip on the leather handle, feeling the weight of the steel item in his palm. He prepares for the escalating difficulties located near the upcoming 20th floor marker. An oversized avian creature drops from the blue expanse, screaming as it aims for the traveler. Yukito gets into position, knowing each successful strike gets him nearer to a magic potion. He meets the airborne pest with a tall, vertical slice of his weapon. His mechanical precision is top-notch, converting an unexpected ambush into some very fast pocket change. In a small cartoon-style flashback, Yukito takes down silver blobs for quick points. It was a fantastic run for a while, but even winners have to wait for monster spawns. He slashed so many blobs that they effectively vanished from the map. Now he stands in a quiet clearing, looking at his items, a casualty of his own insane efficiency. Back in the present, he strikes his edge against a thick, armored rhino beast. Since the easy blobs are gone, he must chew through common mobs using basic manual effort. Yukito fixes his gaze forward with intense focus, preparing for a sequence of fast strikes. He stops moving idly and holds his blade in a low stance. He starts a total blitz, erasing a stone golem and a fuzzy brown predator in roughly 3 seconds. This looks less like a quest and more like a TAS speedrun. Digital loot notifications pop up faster than he can scroll through them. This hidden luck mechanic seemed to be pulling an all-nighter for his global bank account. He gathers a pile of shiny items, including a longbow and some heavy metal blobs. If this continues, he will need a bitter backpack before the clock hits noon. Yukito rests in a freshly dug pit, examining his current inventory list. He holds that gigantic silver-carved greatsword while wearing no defensive plating, truly choosing a very risky wardrobe. Someone else is nearby, though. Tucked away in the shadows of the boulders, the bronze-stoned individual monitors his coordinates, confirming the target is indeed Yukito Takahashi. The hidden figure reacts by gnawing on a thumb while hovering behind a nearby stone. He watches Yukito navigate the zone as if the explorer owned the entire map. He chooses a patient strategy, seeing no logic in a head-on brawl at the specific coordinate. He plans to wait until Yukito stops moving and rests his head. Yukito drops down a steep mountain wall, not noticing the person trailing him. The observer remains in a narrow rock crack, lugging every step the fighter takes. Night blankets the dungeon, and Yukito builds a campfire with flickering orange flames. From a hollowed-out cave nearby, the observer maintains a steady, moving watch on the camp. In a cute cartoon frame, the leader sketches out a new plot. He concludes that Yukito will stay on this floor for days, which means there is time for traps. A mental spark happens for the miniature schemer as a plan forms. He wears a fixed expression while thinking about the upcoming sequence of events he just created. He decides that a warrior of Yukito's caliber is not worth a fair duel. Direct combat is avoided, so he aims for a strategy involving multiple complex environmental factors. The figure runs through the mountain and passes under a crimson moonlight. He utilizes the surrounding terrain to prepare a hostile environment for the solitary swordsman. Observe that peculiar widening of his mouth into a bird shape. This person is clearly arranging a scenario that involves a massive amount of metal and chaos. He considers the local fruit chain, visualized as a pyramid with raptors at the peak, insects in the middle, and rodents at the base. Time for manual sorting. He locates a nested bird with its small offspring, peering entirely still. Unfortunately for them, they are part of a calculated move to lower the population of natural predators. He initiates a sweep, removing the local feathered population in a blur of swinging steel. Without the birds to eat them, the bugs are going to reproduce rapidly. He towers above a sunless trench packed with chitinous targets, ranging the future interval. More creatures incoming. Things are turning remarkably messy. He empties a massive pouch of morsels into the chasm, while a cluster of emerald mantids begins eating, effectively breeding an overwhelming assault force. Hundreds of luminous red points appear within the shadows of that hole. Insects are increasing their numbers rapidly, creating sounds of many skittering joints. They are populating and moving across one another in a rapid, ravenous cluster. This man is basically causing a structural failure in the local food chain. The nature hierarchy topples as the smallest inhabitants cover the cliffs, creating a literal carpet of ledge ready for departure. The figure rests inside the stony enclosure while checking his timepiece. Assuming the interval is correct, the countdown to the event has started. He holds a curved blade tightly, appearing prepared to intervene manually if the swarming creatures fail. He has invested significant effort into this coincidence. He works from the shelter into the daylight with a straight posture, intending this to appear as a standard mishap for a wandering traveler. The strategy is to initiate a giant, unstoppable parade of magical beasts, which provides an excellent method to conceal a target elimination. He stands at the rocky ledge, observing the sloping earth change color from all the movement, ensuring no investigators question him later. He holds a pouch of insect-repelling grains, using the specific chemical mixture to navigate through the multi-legged mass without any physical contact. He covers his clothing with the brownish granules while getting ready to lead the charge, following the sequence he previously arranged. The male hollers for that specific person while the wing mass flies right past his shoulders, basically resting in the center of a bug tornado. He is encircled by a spinning blur of white and red hues, speaking the name Yukito while insects travel in orbits around his stationary body. A focus shot shows his upturned lips and wide eyes during the start. His features look distinct, and it seems to fit his current actions. Nearby, Yukito is occupied with his blade, cutting through a tusked creature with a loud shout, unaware that the entire geography is shifting. He pauses abruptly, detecting a quiet, far-away vibration that grows more audible with each passing second. He examines the vacant canyon with a low hum, wondering about the source of the oscillation. That sound basically heralds a very long day ahead. He looks toward the sky and notices a massive, dark plume moving over the ridges. However, those are not rain clouds appearing. Reality sets in as he looks upward, observing that the approaching bank is actually a dense collection of airborne organisms. It is a mass flight of creatures, thousands of hoverbugs with sharp parts, essentially a motorized blade array moving toward his precise coordinates. Yukito grips his longsword, his skin showing visible signs of moisture, acknowledging that managing this volume of targets exceeds his usual operational capacity. He shifts his weight and begins running away quickly just as the first layer of the cloud starts dropping. Definitely the moment to leave. He seeks other travelers or a solid barrier. Quickly, as he moves along a thin path with the bug formation following closely behind, a camera zoom captures his single green eye searching his past thoughts, looking for information from his decades of lived experiences. He recalls bits of PSA about this level from his early life, specifically memories concerning a hidden resource station in this vicinity. He remembers explorers mentioning a cabin with distinct red earth that makes traveling this hazardous area much easier. That spot is his target. He checks his maps while his facial features show slight tension. That hidden station is missing from all common exploration guides. He finally identifies a location with brown shred dirt, realizing he lacks the surplus time to wander around. It is time to act. Yukito focuses his eyes on the hole in the rock, showing significant physical focus. He does not wish to become lunch for insects. Airborne and lethal, he pulverizes granite obstructions with his oversized kitchen knife of a sword, essentially acting as a one-man construction crew. He cleaves right through a massive amphibian with a serious case of ton trouble, signaling to Kermit that it is time to clear the stage. Finger painting on cave walls reveals a fresh palette of rust-colored dirt, suggesting he finally located the legendary Scald underground basement. Hollering into the void about a literal beast-driven catastrophe, he begs for assistance, praying some brave souls are nearby to help stop the madness. Not even a cricket chirps at the mouth of the cavern, creating an eerie quiet that promises a very unpleasant surprise for our main adventurer. That annoying vibratory hum from the massive insect cloud grows louder by the second, basically tailgating him during his frantic sprint, declaring his intent to enter via extreme demolition if necessary. He raises his sharp metal stick for a final swing to evict any unwanted debris. Boom! He bursts through a concealed partition like a door-to-door salesman from hell, announcing his presence with maximum sonic impact. Stumbling into a ghastly scene, he finds clusters of snoozing captives bound in ropes, proving the spot is less warehouse and more kidnap central. Yukito freezes in disbelief while moisture pools on his brow, realizing his search for a cozy hideout ended up in the heart of a major felony. Observing the pile of helpless people with sucks in their mouths, Yukito notes the sad attempts at communication through intense humming noises. Without skipping a beat, he offers a mischievous smirk, cheekily inquiring if they were just practicing an elaborate form of extreme group yoga. The bound victims vigorously vibrate their heads in protest, seemingly exhausted by his bad comedy while insisting they did not choose this life. Sensing the lack of laughter, Yukito unsheathes a tiny toothpick of a knife, conceding that maybe they really are just unlucky captives in need. Treading the fibrous restraints with surgical speed, he allows the poor souls to inhale air freely once again as their ropes hit the dirt. Watching threads part in dramatic detail reveals the sweet smell of liberty, transforming Yukito from a slayer of beasts into a freelance hero. The tearful towhead starts subbing with joy, grateful to exist after believing his expiration date was rapidly approaching until our guy kicked in the door. Rubbing his neck with feigned nonchalance after the mass rescue, Yukito casually wonders aloud how exactly they all ended up in such a pickle. A muscular fellow clarifies they were jumped by thugs, claiming these vagabonds used some fancy potion to turn them into human paperweights instantly. A red-headed captive deduces they were being held for auction, indicating those wonders are bottom-dwelling scum who value gold over basic human rights. Scanning the local scenery, Yukito identifies a place as a hive of villainy that is significantly more cramped and gloomy than his travel guide suggested. Striking a contemplative pose with crossed limbs, he ponders why this location is not yet a bustling shop for warriors as it once was. Suddenly the realization crashes into him, prompting a bead of nervous moisture to roll down his face as he questions his inner calendar. Recollecting past events, he notes the lawman should not have broken this ring until much later, effectively making him the guy who beat the police to the scene. Sporting a cunning little grin, he enjoys the perk of being chronologically advanced, which means you always catch the bad guys before they peak. Take a look at this tiny cartoon memory where he admits that slaying blubs for 7 decades left him somewhat disconnected from general global news. In a subsequent cute sequence, he treats a 50-year scheduling error as a minor oopsie, showing a truly concerning lack of respect for temporal accuracy. Dismissing logic for the moment, he focuses on that increasingly loud flying static sound that is quickly turning into an immediate personal threat. Glancing out into the shadows with an intense glare, he monitors the insect cloud approach, sensing that the upcoming encounter will likely be quite chaotic. All eyes are locked on the savior as the collective mood pivots from joyous freedom to panic, proving that peace in this cave is short-lived. Yukito tightens his grip until his hand radiates a pale glow, standing in a position often reserved for central heroic figures. The red-haired individual peers toward her companion while outside the cave walls, thousands of shadows rush across the rocky floor. He places his open palms around his face to project his voice, instructing the crowd before more visitors reach the entrance. He extends an index finger toward the dark sky, indicating the vast quantity of leaping entities that are currently moving closer. A massive stream of red and black colors flows through the air, suggesting that if they enter, survival is unlikely. The survivors widen their eyes and look around, wondering if the leaping shapes outside have missed their morning snacks. High energy movement starts as the group points toward the numerous shapes outside, while one girl clutches her head in silence. Yukito remains still without visible tears, keeping his eyes steady on the goal while he prepares for physical combat. He takes a stance at the cave center, holding a unique weapon and asking for total coordination to maintain their lives. The men look down at their boots, calculating that their natural speed is far lower than the winged swarm currently descending. Female participant holds up her bare hands, drawing attention to the lack of protective covers or heavy metal gear. The person with gray hair lifts his palms, shouting that the nomads took every tool they once carried for survival. A broad grin spreads across his face, and he states that his backpack is actually filled to the brim with goods. His fingers dance across a glowing square in the air, shifting items with such high velocity that they become blurry streaks. He places a vast collection of metal spikes, wooden curves, and heavy plates directly onto the dusty stone floor beneath them. The crowd gathers around the heap of gear, while the host invites everyone to select any implement they wish to hold. He offers to adjust the own ship tags for the objects, aiming to provide each member with a set of battle-ready hardware. A man with a thick beard stands paralyzed by the sight, questioning if such high-quality crafts were gathered from this floor. Two women observe the pile of blades and armor, inquiring about the process of collecting such a massive amount of storage. Yukito stands with his mouth turned slightly up, watching the people discard the thin rags for durable metal and hide. He looks at their new forms, thinking about how their names were not listed among the elite warriors in his memory. Diverse items are claimed as some men grab long iron sticks while others prioritize thick torso covers from the shared pile. Women inspect the items, with one fitting a breastplate snugly while another notes that defensive iron saves more lives than swords. A blonde male dresses in heavy blue and gold plating, looking at the ornate designs that could command a small fortune. A girl in frames asks if the items are real or free, while the boy nods with a wide look of simple agreement. He lifts a digit to demand focus, signaling it is time to discuss the upcoming movements of the newly outfitted group. With a steady gaze and a tall posture, Yukito prepares to deliver the next sequence of actions for the assembled team. The gold-tabed man glances at the female archer, who nods her head and agrees with the current leader during the crisis. The unit gathers tightly together while checking the fit of their iron chest plates, appearing more stable with their new heavy gear. The archer woman pulls back her string, staring at the cave mouth while confirming she will follow the instructions provided earlier. The hair-chin combatant is yelling something about not being on today's monster menu, his hands twitching for some manual bug disassembly. Yukito scans his motley crew, observing the group stance while realizing the social gathering has more members than his usual solo activities. A gritty visual replay shows past adventurers checking out early, a standard result during pest outbreaks that Yukito plans to firmly cancel. He tightens his jaw muscles while green light radiates from his oculus sockets, standing in a way that suggests zero personnel losses. The fellow with yellow hay sends a physical signal toward Yukito, having traded minimal cloth for nightly metal in record time. A slight tilt appears on Yukito's mouth, suggesting he is slowly adjusting to his status as the primary focal point of the group. He switches back to an alert posture, eyes narrowing because the incoming entities have successfully reached the stone entrance threshold. He extends a digit toward the cave mouth while speed visuals frame his limb, essentially directing the others to the designated spots. Standing at the rock lips, he verbalizes thoughts on narrow architecture, suggesting a restrictive hallway defense commonly seen in ancient cinema. The tactical diagram explains how standing in a tiny passage limits front-facing contact with the massive numbers of monsters waiting outside. Yukito shouts orders to reduce the population count as the first few creatures arrive, his chrome blade reflecting the overhead blow. The man in charcoal and silver metallic gear takes a static position on the line, gripping his weapon handle with high intensity. The female individual with the wooden pole moves her head downward once, keeping her fingers firmly wrapped around the wood grain. Yukito executes a specific main character facial twitch while his eyes glow like LED bulbs, staring directly into the crowd of units. The physical engagement initiates with Yukito at the formation tip, waiting to see if high luck metrics affect the survival rate. One bug becomes static beneath a sneaker, as Yukito starts the round by converting an insect into a low-profile floor mat. He moves his arm through space, separating organisms, while arcs of azure electricity follow his heavy blade into the thick mass. The subterranean corridor is now home to flying fire projectiles, metallic collisions, and multiple streaks of neon blue visual residue. The auxiliary members maintain their position while a purple-clothed individual releases an energy ripple into the dense insect liquid. Observed from the outside, the vast movement of units looks like a literal river of angry ketchup flowing down the mountainside. An oversized arthropub receives an unsolicited facial from a falling ceiling rock, because apparently the mountain has had quite enough today. The quantity of pests enters the stone opening like floodwater, making the narrow spatial bottleneck the primary survival factor. Moisture drips from the forehead of the man in black metal as he yells regarding the heavy insect overpopulation inside. The individual in the bright red metallic suit shouts about the infinite supply of bugs, while the available floor space shrinks. Yukito keeps oscillating his weapon through the air, even though the total population of the swarm remains statistically very high. The center individual remains visually focused with moisture on his brow, rotating his head to find a different tactical path. Vibrations reach peak levels as the ceiling decides to retire, raining sedimentary souvenirs onto the crowded insect congregation down below. Yukito vocalizes a loud command to move backwards without altering group distance, as large boulders impact the previous floor coordinates. The entities move quickly toward the deeper cavern sections, as the surrounding rock suggests it might become a permanent housing solution. The group looks at the overhead surface as insects consume the mineral, turning the rocky ceiling into a fuzzy mat of legs. Surveys search the field while mental beers grind aggressively, yearning for celestial help or a massive band to save face. Suddenly, a shaky, discarded cavern pathway appears in view, signaling that business is finally about to pick up. Jackpot occurs as he unearths boxes filled with firepower, suggesting local transients forgot their spicy playthings during construction work. Picking up a scarlet fuse tube, he ignores the holographic warning about its garbage stats, viewing trash as a delightful opportunity. Screaming to his comrades, he demands they collect every boomstick available, intending to convert this tunnel into an oversized lethal prank. His skeptical teammates scavenge while doubting the effectiveness of ancient ordnance, though tiny bugs force the hand toward desperate measures. Tight shots reveal a firm grip on extra ammunition, proving even microscopic items matter when conducting massive peak-level structural deletion. Hours pass during their slow retreat through hellish landscapes, enduring soul-crushing combat just to maintain a few feet of stone. Destruction levels reach absurd heights, leaving the triangular summit looking like a Nord carcass after heavy grazing by insect hordes. Finally cornered without escape routes, the ragged band of remaining warriors stares directly into the mandibles of the impending doom crowd. Crimson-clad warrior hits the floor gasping for air, while magical doctors push beyond sanity trying to mend broken physical gauges, staring into the cavernous void filled with bioluminescent hostility. Our protagonist encounters the interval typically reserved for making peace with deities. With moisture sliding down his forehead, eyes blink shut as internal decisions solidify, clearly signaling imminent departure from standard sane behavior. Alerting the masses with a booming vocal cord flex, he signals the start of his ridiculous grand finale, demanding every explosive stick in inventory. He maintains the appearance of a lunatic while holding the sole remaining tactical survival manual. A facial hair enthusiast flings over some TNT, cautioning that men will sparks won't stop legions, convinced this constitutes a desperate last-ditch gamble. Contribution from the bow wielder arrives with minimal optimism, comparing her donation to a teaspoon of water inside a very thirsty sea. Snagging the items, he nonchalantly reassures them, stating he targets structural foundations rather than aiming at pesky insect legs directly. Emerald Vision focuses on geometry, calculating stress loads and load-bearing columns instead of relying on luck or blind superstitious guesses. Accessing his digital stash, he merges 13 explosive units into a single supercharged pile, embracing the classic double-or-nothing tactical philosophy. Positioning his boom stack against fragile support beams, he draws intense hatred from mobs thanks to his impressive total kill count score. Fiery-haired soldier loses composure as stone partitions scream in agony, shrieking alarms about imminent roof failure inside the narrow shelter. The golden-haired fellow bellows for immediate evacuation as the entrance begins a dramatic dance with gravity and impending geological failure. Retreating comrades howl in fear, assuming a suicidal endgame is afoot, totally failing to recognize the specific genius of their eccentric companion. Flaunting his trademark grin backward, he issues a plea for faith, which typically counts as a verbal death warrant in caves. Solo against the tidal wave of insectoid nightmares, he muses that occasionally one must bet the whole farm on one throw. System interface glows mirror within his steady gaze, portraying absolute tranquility while staring into the gaping abyss of potential permanent retirement. Deciding that current circumstances require bold action, he watches as shimmering menu pixels illuminate the launch of his dangerous master scheme. One digit quivers above the affirmative use prompt to ignite 13-fold destruction, fully embodying the classic high-stakes red-colored activation switch scenario. Confirming the command, he performs acrobatic evasions while the portal behind him transforms into a beautiful symphony of rock-based havoc. He absolutely trolls the giant insects, practically inviting them right into the center of the detonation radius. This man is clinically insane. Typically, a warrior's chance of triggering a major explosion is practically non-existent, but Yukito isn't typical. He's staking everything on a statistical anomaly called luck. A large red warning flashes up on his screen, noting the POOR quality and subtracting 25% from his detonation odds. He's basically just praying to the divine power of random number generation now. The system confirms success, and he lets out a triumphant scream that it actually worked. His luck stat apparently just forced an impossible 13-stage explosion. Blinding white-hot light instantly engulfs the tunnel as the first bug vaporizes. That, right there, is a whole lot of damage. The ground begins to shake as rocks pour down, burying the swarm under tons of debris. The mountain decided it had enough and joined the fight. A gigantic explosion completely rearranges the landscape, triggering a total mountain collapse. The entire horde of bugs gets buried alive in one convenient go. Yukito's foot connects with solid ground with a satisfying thud. He's out of the kill zone precisely when the fun starts. He lands gracefully on a rocky outcrop just as a literal avalanche of stone seals the cave behind him. Now that is what you call a clean escape. He doesn't pause for even a second to breathe, pulling out his silver sword once more. He can sense there's still one loose thread remaining. He immediately fires off the midi-layer strike, a huge blue crescent of energy that slices through the cloud of dust. The close-up reveals his intensely focused eye. He noticed something moving in the smoke that everyone else totally missed. One incredibly resilient elite bug somehow managed to survive the mountain's wrath. It's crawling out of the rubble looking extremely angry. The insect lets out a furious shriek, its purple eyes glowing with rage. Time for the bonus round mini-boss fight. Yukito doesn't offer it a chance to recover, activating the mid-layer strike again. The very ace starts to hum with residual power. A massive vertical beam of light descends, cleanly bisecting the elite bug. At this point, his luck stat is simply bullying the local wildlife. The monster dissolves into a million sparkling digital shards. Well, that problem is officially solved. Yukito stands tall looking like a total professional, his hair dramatically blowing in the wind. He might be dirty, but he's the only one who seems to know what's going on. The other survivors watch from a nearby ledge, absolutely shell-shocked. They cannot believe he reduced the threat's momentum and actually pulled off the impossible gamble. Wait, a new problem surfaces. The ledge where he's standing begins to crumble. The mountain is still incredibly unstable following that massive explosion. Yukito slips. He's now falling off the side of the cliff as dust and rocks rain down around him. He desperately reaches out with one hand, trying to find any sort of grip on the slick rock face. Dying like this would be a tragic, ironic end after winning the war. He strains every single muscle in his body, but the safety of the edge remains just slightly beyond his reach. He looks straight down into the vast abyss below. For a split second, it really looks like his legendary luck has finally run out on him. Suddenly, a rope loops securely around his wrist. Someone definitely had a lifeline prepared for this kind of foolishness. Behind grips the rope with white-knuckled intensity. The team is absolutely not going to let the hero fall to his doom today. The gray-haired guy and the bearded warrior are pulling him up with every ounce of strength they possess, shouting to hang on as they haul him to safety. Yukito offers a small, relieved smile as he is finally pulled over the edge. He's sweating profusely and utterly exhausted, but at least he's still alive. Just look at the valley now. It is completely filled with a gigantic pile of dead bugs and rocks. The monster crisis is officially concluded. Yukito sits on a ledge, watching the sunset over the ruins. He feels certain he won the gamble, and he knows in his heart that he's the luckiest man alive. The team celebrates behind him with cheers and tears, and surviving a monster stampede without a scratch is a miracle only Yukito could deliver. Rewards are pouring in, specifically the Exterminator title for purging those Deathlippers, which is honestly a pretty wicked manga to rock. His damage output against Creepy Crawl is jumped by 20% and he gained 3 levels, so the grind is paying off big time. The cherry on top is a skill called Warrior's Intuition, which basically gives him a massive psychic upgrade for the drummer coming up next. The boss is throwing a total tantrum because his elaborate plan to unleash Monster Chaos got completely dismantled by our guy. He holds his head in disbelief since his swarm died and his secret lair got trashed, which is definitely not a good look. Shaking like a leaf in a gale, he knows his corporate overlords are going to end him for this spectacular failure. Clenching his fist while lit by the lantern, he decides to pin every single one of his problems on Yukito out of pure spite. He starts chugging wine to stop the jitters, drinking with the desperate intensity of someone whose expiration date is fast approaching. In a fit of rage, he smashes his bottle against the desk, and the flying glass matches his shattered hopes for getting revenge. Glowing with red-hot fury like a demonic grate, he screams about murdering Yukito, showing he has a very unhealthy obsession with our hero. Check out that close-up on his eye, which proves he is ready to trade his own existence just to take Yukito down. We pivot to the bride and cheery adventurer Dilt, where the top-tier hunters are doing the usual boring, professional routine. Folks are whispering and pointing as Yukito strolls past, proving that gossip travels faster than a teleporting wizard in the city. He glides through the lobby while the receptionist fawns over his latest feat, treating him like the local celebrity he has become. Fresh recruits are calling him the Mountain Crusher, having heard tales of how he rescued those captives and ended the panic alone. Some guy is practically on his knees begging to join his squad, because everyone wants to hitch a ride on the success train. Another recruiter tries to snag him, but Yukito is currently being smothered by people hoping to profit off his legendary status. He offers a polite decline and shoos them away, content to stay as solo operator because he prefers his own company. He thinks back to his former existence as Alona, finding it funny that he is much more famous now despite being equally solitary. He puts on his serious face while working away, knowing that dragging a party alone would only complicate his main objectives. If he shares the loot, getting that elixir becomes a gamble, and he cannot risk his mother's life on a randomized dice roll. The math is simple, because group rewards are totally random and even his legendary luck cannot force the system to drop the specific loot he needs. Looking at his finger, he realizes that even his maxed out luck has boundaries, especially if someone else grabs the item first. So even supernatural fortune has limits, forcing him to keep working alone to ensure he grabs exactly what the doctor ordered. He leaves the guild feeling exhausted but resolute, ready to return to his normal life after handling the dungeon business. The sunset paints their apartment in a warm, cozy glow, which is a nice break from the damp and depressing dungeon aesthetic. Look at the table, because the Takahashi family is hosting a feast so large they might actually need a crane to finish it. Yukito prays before the meal starts, looking genuinely pleased to be sharing this quiet moment with his beloved family members. Nozomi and the mother look vibrant and healthy as they thank him for the food, creating a domestic bliss that makes his past homelessness feel like a lifetime ago. Look at the guy eat. Yukito is absolutely crushing that fried chicken with a big smile. Nothing tastes quite as good as a regular meal after you've almost died. He recalls how they always found a reason to celebrate, even back when they were financially challenged and had to eat ramen every night. The family connection was always worth more than a full bank account. The vibe suddenly gets serious when Nozomi asks about his upcoming plans. She finds it absolutely wild that he's already aiming for the dreaded 20th floor so quickly. Mom gives him a truly worried look, asking if he'll genuinely be alright down there. She's still trying to heal herself and definitely doesn't need the added worry of her son getting injured again. Nozomi grabs her phone to display the horrifying data. The success rate for the 20th floor is barely 15%, meaning this dangerous zone essentially chews up and spits out rookies before lunch. Yukito just flashes them a confident smile and assures them everything will be totally fine. He points out they should both realize exactly what he's capable of after all the crazy stuff he's survived already. Mom glances at the newspaper article about Yukito's achievements hanging on the wall. She feels immense pride, but explains that having children means never truly relaxing her anxiety levels. The camera focuses on Mom, her eyes shut tightly, revealing deep internal struggle. She understands her son is putting his life on the line specifically because she gets sick. She begs him to avoid pushing himself past the breaking point. A mother can't possibly be happy watching her child essentially destroy himself, even if the sacrifice is supposedly for her own survival. Yukito casts his eyes downward, his features hidden in darkness. He takes in her concerns, but his determination remains absolutely unbreakable. He recalls that horrible day in his former existence when his first mother died. That memory serves as a recurring nightmare he simply cannot allow to repeat itself. He offers her a soft, reassuring smile. He tells her that no child enjoys seeing the parents suffer, explaining that he's doing this because he cares, not just because he feels forced to. Mom and Nozomi exchange glances, understanding they've hit a wall in this conversation. Nozomi mentions that her big brother has always been incredibly stubborn, noting that once he locks onto an idea, he's seeing it through. Nozomi adds that when he truly decides something, absolutely nothing on earth can make him change his mind. He's completely dedicated to his chosen trajectory. Mom lets out a small, defeated chuckle, rubbing her face and declaring that, in this respect, he takes after his dad completely. Yukito keeps enjoying his meal, telling them to stop worrying since he's doing this completely by choice. He's finally grabbing hold of his own future. The family dinner carries on, offering a brief period of calm before the chaos inevitably returns. Mom smiles once more, content simply to have both her children safe nearby. The screen fades to black as the heavy realization settles in. I failed to save Mom in my previous life. That failure is now the potent fuel driving my actions every single moment of every day. Yukito gazes at his reflection shimmering in a glass of water, comparing the person he once was with the person he has become. He takes a long gulp, almost as if he's trying to swallow down all the awful memories of his previous shortcomings. That failure is lodged firmly in his heart, a constant painful reminder. He won't find peace until he finally repays that immense personal debt in its entirety. He visualized the legendary elixir in his mind. He must obtain that cure to truly wipe away the trauma of the past and finally begin living his new existence. Yukito finishes eating and thanks everyone for dinner. The brief period of normal family life is officially concluded for now, and it's time to clock back in. The location changes to a massive, dark dungeon hall filled with huge stone columns. The air itself feels heavy and tight, carrying the scent of millennia-old grime. Yukito's shoe strikes the stone stairs as he ventures deeper into the dungeon. He moves with focused intensity, his vision already accustomed to the absolute lack of light, presenting the Tokyo Dungeon's 20th floor, officially known as the Starbone Alchemist's Great Wall of Hypophysics. That name definitely requires a pause for breath and a dictionary. He dashes down the giant hallway, peering as a minuscule speck compared to the colossal architecture. This entire structure feels far too enormous and definitely not designed with human safety in mind. Out of nowhere, several mechanical humanoid monsters suddenly materialize. They possess spooky, ghoulish expressions and glowing crimson lines covering their entire frames. Yukito pulls out his enormous silver sword, prepared to engage in combat. He understands that every single monster on this level is just an emotionless, inorganic construct, meaning they won't even try to surrender. He launches a devastating blue energy attack that slices clean through the entire first group. These creatures might consist of solid stone and metal, but they're clearly still no match for his awesome swordplay. He glares at the bad guys, giving them the full force of his icy determination, viewing these ruthless killers as a serious impediment to his progress. A robotic, dragon-like monstrosity looms behind him, its eyes glowing with pure malice while Yukito finds himself completely surrounded by high-level constructs. He slips under an attack, observing that the calculations are based solely on logic, which explains that perfect machine-like coordination is a single fighting unit. Yukito stands amid the wreckage of his foes, sword gripped tightly, clearly demonstrating surgical precision while completely clearing this dungeon floor. His boot scrapes to a halt on the tile floor with a decisive sound, signaling that he has finally arrived at the end of the hallway. He looks up to observe a massive stone golem perched on a throne at the chamber's far end, realizing this must be the exact boss monster he was searching for. The golem slowly rises to its feet, radiating a terrifying crimson aura, looking absolutely enormous and bulky enough to flatten a small apartment complex with just one hand. Yukito's eyes glow with a familiar intense green light, clearly showing he isn't intimidated at all, just busy analyzing the massive golem's patterns to find a weakness. The golem lets out a terrifying roar, its colossal stone body grinding together with a sound that could shatter glass, essentially a literal mountain of rock deciding to animate itself. Yukito springs into action, narrowly dodging a colossal boulder that the golem just slammed down, watching as the ground where he stood a moment earlier completely shatters. He glides through the swirling dust cloud, eyes completely focused on his opponent, looking like a professional athlete competing in the final moments of a high-stakes championship game. He decides inwardly that conquering this particular floor is completely within his grasp, his confidence surging to an all-time peak while he prepares for his decisive final attack. Yukito surges forward, his silver sword radiating a blinding white and blue energy, channeling every last ounce of power he possesses into this single strike. The impact connects, as he delivers a devastating hit directly to the monster's mechanical core, illuminating the entire chamber from the pure, unadulterated power of the attack. He pauses before a gigantic, intricately decorated double door at the end of the dungeon hallway, knowing this serves as a final barrier between him and his objective. He puts both hands on the enormous stone doors and begins pushing, whispering to himself that it's time to go, fully prepared for whatever horrors await behind them. The screen abruptly fades into a brilliant, glowing white, revealing a simple message reading, "Today I changed my life," signifying this is the ultimate moment of truth. The scene concludes with Yukito standing bathed in light as the doors slowly creak open, resembling a legend stepping into the annals of history, prepared to reclaim everything he has forfeited. Yukito steps into the 20th floor boss chamber, noting the truly massive size of the place, where a huge ritual circle on the ground confirms something terrible is about to happen. He moves cautiously, allowing his eyes to scan the enveloping darkness, when he suddenly hears a loud, echoing mechanical sound resonate through the vast chamber. The ritual circle starts to pulse with a terrifying red glow, causing the very ground to rumble as the mysterious summoning process fully kicks into motion. A truly enormous foot appears first, as the boss monster starts to materialize, apparently crafted from both heavy stone and complex ancient machinery. More of the creature emerges from the summoning, coated in moss and glowing purple circuits. This isn't merely a monster, it's a colossal moving fortress. Behold the ancient golem, which is an absolute unit of a monster, completely towering over Yukito and powered by brightly glowing green and pink energy cores. Close up on the golem's eye reveals a single glowing red light that looks exactly like a certain kill robot, confirming this is indeed the final boss of the 20th floor. Yukito unsheathes his silver sword, appearing totally unconcerned, knowing full well that this enemy is tough and hits hard, yet confident because he has a solid plan. The golem attempts to smash him, but Yukito effortlessly avoids the blow, thinking to himself that for a supposedly powerful boss, its actual speed is quite mediocre. Our hero is a literal blur as he sprints across the boss chamber, searching for an opening, and moving far too fast for this giant clunker to effectively keep pace with him. Yukito lands a powerful blue energy slash directly on the golem's massive arm, strategically playing it smart by steadily dismantling the creature piece by piece. He is sweating heavily but maintains perfect concentration, his intense green eyes fixed squarely on the opponent, understanding he must just keep up this pattern to claim victory. He locks onto that glowing blue core, realizing it's the structural floor he needs to obliterate eventually. This guy understands it's all about playing the long game here, not just mashing buttons. Oh, look at that. A creepy hooded guy emerges from the shadows with a nasty smirk. It's that gang leader from before, and he's clearly here to cause trouble. He's peeking through the doors, watching Yukito do all the hard work while staying safe. This guy looks like he's about to pull off the ultimate cheap shot. The guy activates a secondary red ritual circle, strategically placed right behind Yukito. This is pure, malicious sabotage. The ground begins to rumble ominously as another ancient golem is summoned. This guy just took a challenging boss fight and turned it into a literal death trap. Yukito's eyes go completely wide as he realizes the situation, letting out a shocked shout. I would be screaming too if I just got double teamed like that. A second ancient golem fully materializes, glowing with an evil red aura. Dealing with just one of these things was hard enough, but two feels like overkill. Yukito stands trapped between the two massive stone titans, looking completely cornered. He thinks, absolutely no way. The situation defines an unfair fight. The realization hits him like a rock. There is another intruder in the boss room. He breaks into a sweat, realizing someone is actively trying to ensure his demise. He looks back at the entrance, but the hooded individual has already vanished into thin air. It's like fighting a phantom who doubles as a master saboteur. Yukito thinks to himself that interrupting a boss fight to trigger a double raid is something not even a rookie would do. He realizes this was definitely a targeted, malicious hit. He readies his sword, understanding that the 20th floor just became significantly more hazardous. He is surrounded by massive stone giants and an unseen killer. Suddenly, a dagger whistles through the air, aimed directly at his head. He manages to spot the lethal projectile just in time. He manages to deflect the flying blade with his gleaming silver sword. That near miss was definitely way too close for comfort. Yukito knows this certainly wasn't an accident or a coincidence. He's now on high alert, certain the intruder is out for blood. The hooded gang leader, Teshikito, grinds his teeth together in the shadows. He's thoroughly annoyed that Yukito actually managed to block his surprise attack. Tito steps out from behind a pillar, looking totally unimpressed with the situation. He realizes that his carefully planned stealth approach has been completely blown. He pulls out a jagged dagger and gives a nasty smirk. He assumes he still has the overwhelming advantage, since Yukito is currently busy with 2 buses. We cut to a flashback of Kito sitting at his laptop, calling Yukito an idiot. This guy truly believes he is some kind of tactical genius. The boss information on his screen says the ancient golem requires at least 4 people to defeat it. He is banking on the simple fact that Yukito is solo. He remembers entering the room late just so he could intentionally trigger that second boss spawn. That truly defines a petty way to win a fight. Back in the present, Kito looks like a classic cartoon villain. He's completely enjoying the absolute chaos he's created for everyone else. Check out his status. Teshikito, level 52, thief. He clearly has way more levels than Yukito, and he isn't shy about bragging about it. Tito activates his skill, tab work. He begins moving with absolute silence, ready to strike while Yukito is completely distracted by the massive buses. His plan is to redirect all of the golem's attention squarely onto Yukito. He's using his advanced thief skills to stay completely off the monster's radar. Next, he activates the skill Shadow Crossing. Yukito turns into a purple mist, making him almost impossible to track in this dark, massive hall. Yukito struggles desperately, forced to block one massive golem while Kito circles him like a predator. This is truly as unfair as it gets. Tito reveals an S-rank rare item, an invisibility cloak. He's layering his stealth so he can truly be the ultimate cowardly attacker. The thief is now completely invisible, observing the battle safely from a distance. He's just waiting for the perfect moment to end Yukito's run. He starts pouring a nasty-looking purple liquid onto his dagger. Yep, that's poison. This guy really is pulling out all the dirty tricks in the book. He thinks he can just keep attacking with impunity, convinced that Yukito stands absolutely no chance against an unseen, poison-wielding enemy. He flicks his wrist and sends the poison dagger spinning through the air. The plan is to corner Yukito slowly without ever engaging in real combat. The dagger merely grazes Yukito, but then a system message flashes, announcing poison effect check failed. Yukito's legendary luck just saved his life again. Tito is absolutely beside himself with confusion. He cannot comprehend how someone in such minimal armor possesses better poison resistance than a high-level tank. The thief is completely enraged, his face contorting with fury. He simply can't believe his perfect, flawless plan is failing so miserably. He throws caution to the wind and unleashes a literal deluge of throwing knives. He has officially given up on precision in favor of sheer quantity. Yukito is forced to dodge even more traps. The room quickly transforms into a chaotic obstacle course full of bouncing purple orbs. A close-up view shows that when these trap orbs hit the floor, they explode and spray sharp needles in every direction like a deadly hedgehog. The orbs detonate, filling the air with projectiles, and Yukito is barely keeping ahead of the absolute chaos. Yukito pulls a hidden wire, activating an electric trap. Sparks fly everywhere, tightening the deadly perimeter around Yukito. Lightning arcs across the ritual circle, turning the whole area into a lethal-looking death zone for anyone caught in the middle. The thief begins laughing like a maniac while spraying some kind of gas or liquid from a canister. He's deploying multiple traps to seal off every escape route. He's determined to completely immobilize Yukito, essentially turning the entire boss room into a high-tech cage for our hero. He figures the boss golems will make short work of Yukito once he's trapped. He starts celebrating his inevitable victory before it actually happens. Yukito is struggling to fight a golem while a swirling storm of purple traps circles around him. It really looks like he's in deep trouble now. Tito takes a running leap away, planning to just sit back and watch the show from a safe and comfortable spot. Wait, hold on. A huge explosion of mana erupts right beneath Tito, making him shriek in complete surprise. It seems someone just got a very rude awakening. The thief is sweating profusely, looking totally panicked. His invisibility spell was instantly shattered by a perfectly timed counterattack. Yukito looks directly at him with an infuriatingly smug grin, asking if he's already run out of magic tricks. Talk about a total power move. Tito screams in absolute shock. He cannot believe for a second that a low-level rookie actually managed to pinpoint his hidden location. Yukito stands casually over the thief's dropped dagger, exuding total control. He tells Kito to stop sulking in silence and actually say something. He taunts the thief, asking if Kito is stalking him because he likes him so much. Yukito is enjoying this whole situation far too much. Kito completely loses his cool, shouting and demanding to know exactly how Yukito discovered his hidden position. Yukito just gives him a cool, collected look, claiming it was a famous skill. Yeah, sure, buddy, we all know it's that 9,999 luck stat doing all the work. The thief shrieks that Yukito is lying through his teeth. He refuses to accept that a basic low-level skill could actually work on a high-level specialist like him. Yukito points his sword and asks if Kito is planning to flee like a coward. He is clearly trying to goad the thief into a direct fight. Tito starts gritting his teeth, a low growl rumbling in his throat. He has never been this thoroughly humiliated in his entire life. He pulls out his remaining daggers and screams at Yukito not to underestimate him. He has completely abandoned stealth in favor of raw fury. He lunges forward in a blur, shouting that he's still the superior one here. He's channeling all his level 52 power into the single, desperate attack. The silver greatsword collides with the dual daggers in a massive burst of energy. This is it. Skill and experience versus sheer, unadulterated luck. Yukito lands a brutal counter that sends Kito tumbling back with a pathetic groan, getting schooled by a level 23 amateur. Yukito poses with a cocky grin, reminding the thief that only winners get to torque trash, and picking a fight with him was a massive blunder. With a heady parry, Yukito sends the thief sliding across the floor, making his level 52 ego look like a total joke. The thief fumes, whining that sensing him with mere warrior intuition is cheap, convinced he was just unlucky rather than outplayed. Yukito offers a bored shrug, confirming he is not bluffing while suggesting the guy's supposedly elite stealth is basically preschool hide and seek. The system verifies the warrior intuition skill, a basic yet lethal radar that turns any wannabe assassin into an open book. Consider the odds, a hilarious 99% failure rate that makes this still total trash for everyone except our weirdly gifted protagonist. A zoom on the hero's eye reveals a mechanical blow, as he risks his life on a minuscule sliver of success. He offers a sly grin, fully aware that betting on such abysmal odds is just his signature broken character charm at work. Bingo, the system screen flashes success because having 9,999 luck makes a tiny 0.1% chance feel like a certain hit. The tactical HUD illuminates every trap and lurking foe, effectively turning the thief's entire master plan into an open picture book. Kaido charges in, begrudgingly admitting the warrior is quick for his level while still desperately clinging to his superiority complex. Yukito shrugs off the strike with a polite thanks, treating this intense life or death duel like a casual weekend workout. The thief rages about the limitations of the warrior class, betting his entire personality on his high accuracy and speed stats. Kaido blurs through the air like a blue streak, shrieking about his agility advantage while failing to catch our time-traveling friend. Crimson energy fills the room as Kaido commits to a desperate killing blow, dumping every single stat point into one wild flurry. Headlines, Yukito grunts as the blade connects, but the system ping instantly flashes a paralysis effect that was neatly sidestepped. Kaido stands frozen, impressed by the warrior's status resistance, unaware that the real secret ingredient is just blind luck. Yukito backflips away with complete indifference, widening the gap and watching his opponent lose his mind in real time. He sidesteps a giant boulder tossed by a golem without taking his gaze off the thief, showing off freakish spatial awareness. A zoom on the golem's glowing eye shows a boss beast lurking, eager to jump into the middle of this chaotic dumpster fire. Kaido shrieks that Yukito is doomed, banking everything on the golem's doing the heavy lifting he clearly cannot manage himself. The thief triggers his special sting strike, causing his blade to radiate a gross yellow glow as he readies his ultimate move. Kaido cackles like a lunatic, convinced he has secured the win before the fight is even over. Typical villain behavior. Yukito responds with a butterfly dance, swirling in purple petals and ghosting through the attacks like a total graceful legend. Kaido loses his cool, screaming in shock that his perfect hit failed to connect against a supposedly slow and clunky warrior. Yukito breaks down the math, explaining that high luck values override skill conflicts, making his stats basically a broken cheat code. He glares down at Kaido, essentially mocking the thief for having pathetic stats compared to a seasoned regressive's hidden potential. The thief growls with his face twisted into a mask of pure fury, clearly approaching a glorious mental breakdown. Kaido keeps babbling delusional nonsense about his speed advantage, still unable to accept that he is being outclassed by warrior. Abruptly, the antique construct ignites a crimson gaze, clearly fed up with being snubbed and eager to unleash some lethal layoffs. Yukito takes a desperate plunge while a searing laser liquefies the masonry behind him. Talk about a real and narrow haircut. Tito brags that the 20th level is just fantastic, utilizing the massive baddie's predictable rhythm to pin the lad down. He claims the boss follows a rigid logic, allowing him to evade attacks blind, acting as if he conquered this entire pit. The bandit sneers at Yukito, assuming he purchased his intel from some guild, clearly oblivious to the actual threat he faces. Yukito remains mute with an icy gaze, patiently observing while his opponent sets up for one final, fatal miscalculation. Yukito dances through the golem's tracks like a caffeinated gymnast, seemingly performing a one-man show for an audience of zero. Yukito breaks a sweat while sidestepping another beam, feigning incompetence to hope the arrogant thief with some expert bait. Trapped amidst a thicket of lethal spikes, he appears cornered while Kito shrieks about the impossibility of surviving his elaborate snares. The scoundrel flashes a wicked grin, winding up to deliver a finishing strike that he assumes will seal the deal. He charges ahead, certain that the lack of environmental chaos makes his triumph an inevitable conclusion from the very start. Tito triggers his Scorpion EDG Death Strike, summoning a giant violet spirit which feels like using a cannon on an ant. Yukito bellows as a wave of violet force consumes him, appearing to reach the terminal screen of his long adventure. Yukito is launched airborne, this frame shimmering with a lingering static discharge of the bandit's supposedly ultimate trump card. He crashes into the dirt, appearing utterly wrecked, likely causing the onlookers in the rear to have a collective meltdown. His chrome blade slips from his grasp and strikes the rocky tiles with a mournful ring, signaling a rotted grim outlook. Yukito remains brown with hidden eyes, while the thief is already busy mentally drafting his victory speech for the local press. Yukito descends with crimson eyes, howling about finishing the job with a brutal downward blade thrust to end the charade. Yukito releases a chilling, jagged cry, appearing as though his brain has finally decided to quit the job entirely today. Suddenly, he snaps his gaze wide with a sly smirk, revealing it was a farce. What a certified absolute lunatic he is. He smacks his palm against a concealed floor switch, convinced he has finally ensnared the arrogant fool in his trap. A giant violet bubble of sheer pressure explodes beneath the thief, turning the tables on our self-proclaimed master of the hunt. Tito is losing his mind, shrieking in disbelief as his body is crushed against the floor by tenfold the standard gravity. Yukito rises and dusts off his coat, reminding his captive that he confidently claimed this room possessed zero irregularities earlier. The bandit struggles to articulate a word, his jaw clamped shut by the heavy force field. Surely a very awkward situation indeed. Yukito looms over the immobilized thief like a true legend, noting that public strategy guides only cover the most mundane circumstances. He chuckles, remarking that few folks account for a complete more and crushing a boss encounter, essentially mocking the entire tactical plan. Tito descends into a blind panic, realizing his ingenious strategy has spectacularly backfired in the most embarrassing way imaginable today. The H-Stone brute bellows while charging a follow-up, fixating its aggression on the loudest person present, which is obviously Kito. Yukito clarifies that the raid transition physically altered the chamber layout, making the dungeon itself hostile toward the unwelcome intruder. He dodges a piece of falling rubble like he's practicing for a dance class, looking completely at ease as the entire chamber begins to disintegrate around him. Yukito took a moment to taunt him, wondering aloud why a professional thief couldn't even manage to spot the obvious traps. He told Kito his reflexes were clearly getting rusty. Tito shrieked for him to shut up, absolutely losing his mind as he tried desperately to escape the gravity trap's crushing force. He couldn't believe he was losing to a novice warrior. His rage was so intense it looked like he was literally spitting venom. A massive mechanical arm slammed into Keto with a sickening crack, almost certainly shattering his ribcage upon impact. The thief began coughing up a veritable geyser of blood, getting completely pulverized by the very boss monster he had summoned. Tito lay broken on the floor, questioning how this was even possible as his vision began to fade. Finally realizing he had picked a fight with a demon in human form, the golem raised both fists for a finishing blow, signaling the definite end of the road for the gang's leader. The gigantic column of red energy instantly vaporized everything within the blast radius. Consider everything in that area officially annihilated. A close-up shot of Kaido's bloody hand resting motionless on the cold stone floor revealed he was completely unconscious. His final conscious thought was one of total disbelief, as even his high-level search abilities hadn't detected Yukito's next move. Kaido stared up at the ceiling for a second, wondering exactly what kind of person Yukito was before everything faded to black. Kaido was face down in the dirt, spitting out a mouthful of blood and looking absolutely destroyed after that encounter, which was long overdue. Quite frankly, Yukito stood over his defeated opponent, silver blade still in hand, looking utterly cold as he commanded the thief to remain exactly where he was. Our hero offered him one final choice, stay alive and face the police once the boss was defeated. That was a far more generous offer than I would have made after Kaido's actions. One of the ancient golems loomed ominously behind them as Yukito turned back to the main objective. Tito hadn't moved from the ground, but he definitely still had some tricks left up his sleeve. Kaido's face was covered in crimson as he snarled through clenched teeth, ordering Yukito not to mess with him. Yeah, alright buddy, you're the one currently kissing the pavement. Yukito's eyes went wide as he realized something was very wrong. The sheer desperation emanating from the thief caught him completely off guard. Kaido unleashed a maniacal laugh that would make a horror movie villain jealous. He had totally lost his marbles, vowing to drag Yukito straight to hell with him. He revealed a massive bundle of high-grade red dynamite. This wasn't the cheap junk Yukito had confiscated earlier. This was a genuine, high-octane article. The thief had literally struck the explosives to himself, looking like a total psycho. He was determined to end everything right here, regardless of the consequences. Yukito screamed, demanding to know if Kaido was completely insane. He couldn't believe this guy was attempting a suicide bombing inside the bus chamber. Kaido started giggling like a madman as he opened up a system prompt. He was hovering over the confirmation button, ready to send both of them into the afterlife. He hit the button with zero hesitation, initiating what would definitely be a game over scenario for everyone involved. A massive column of fire and smoke erupted, instantly filling the entire boss room. That was easily enough dynamite to bring the whole dungeon floor down. Yukito was caught directly in the blast, his face contorted in a silent scream as the sheer force of the explosion sent him flying around like a ragdoll. The stone floor was literally disintegrating beneath his feet. The structural damage was so severe that the ground began to turn into a bottomless abyss. The entire area caved in, sending gigantic boulders and debris tumbling down into the dark chasm. This was truly a worst-case scenario. Yukito plummeted through the smoke and rubble, letting out a final miserable groan as he realized there was no stopping his fall. He slammed into the hard stone floor of a hidden room with a sickening thud, groaning in pain. Calling that an understatement is probably the understatement of the millennium. Honestly, he was down for the count, gripping his skull as crimson fluid streamed down his features. Surviving that explosion and landing was a feat, but he was currently experiencing a truly epic amount of discomfort. Tearing toward the tiny speck of brightness far overhead, he quickly realized he'd tumbled deep enough into the mountain's core to make climbing back up a hilarious impossibility. Taking stock of his surroundings, he recognized the layout as a hidden coliseum. He truly hadn't anticipated finding a secret level tucked away underneath the main 20-story boss chamber. From the darkness stepped a pair of ancient stone automatons. The dungeon seemed to have just decided, completely arbitrarily, that the impossible setting was actually too easy. The mechanical limbs of the giants screeched together with a truly ear-splitting cacophony, making the colossal constructs feel absolutely enormous. Yukito felt less like a hero and more like a dust mote in comparison. He clenched his jaw, understanding he was completely hemmed in, facing a pair of high-tier enemies with zero escape routes available. This wasn't just a tough encounter, it was a genuine, high-stakes death trap. His eye focused intensely as beads of cold perspiration appeared on his forehead. Even though his body was battered and completely worn out, his mind frantically searched for a clever loophole. Suddenly, he caught sight of something unexpected, a soft golden light emanating from the very end of the tight passage ahead. A pedestal held what appeared to be a legendary treasure chest, shimmering with an almost painfully bright, dazzling radiance. Despite the blood, a cunning grin stretched across his face as the situation dawned on him. Secret rooms like these inevitably house a truly overpowered loot, items so valuable they require not one, but a pair of colossal bodyguards. Yukito gripped his blade tight, his gaze shining with a renewed focus. He certainly wasn't about to give up the ghost without putting up a spectacular struggle first. The stone constructs completely filled the passage, making his standard evasive maneuvers entirely unworkable in the confined space. He knew this meant a direct confrontation was unavoidable. He glanced at the chest once more, understanding it represented his single shot at survival. Playing cautiously was no longer an option in this extremely dangerous and cramped location. The golems began charging up the power cores, forcing the very atmosphere to turn a shade of violet. He realized that a prolonged war of attrition would quickly lead to his demise in this wounded condition. He concluded that he had no alternative except to wager his entire existence on reaching that treasure chest. This was officially going to be the most high-stakes, ridiculously foolish gamble he'd ever attempted. He launched himself ahead using every bit of strength remaining in his battered body. He moved like an apparition between the golems, deliberately pushing the throbbing agony out of his mind. The entire chamber reverberated as the automatons attempted to flatten him into the stone floor. He was only just managing to evade the crushing force of the massive limbs. He ducked and weaved through the giant legs, the sheer scale of the confrontation appearing totally ridiculous. This was truly next-level boss encounter acrobatics. He let out a sharp cry as a heavy metallic limb brushed past him, almost making him stumble. He was pushing his injured body far beyond its absolute limits. The speed transformed him into little more than a colorful streak, but a glance at the floor showed a worrying crimson streak. He was quite literally tracing his path toward the prize with his own life force. The chest, adorned in magnificent blue and gold, was now clearly in sight. It was within arm's reach. All at once, one of the golems focused its crimson optical sensor on him. It began to power up a point-blank execution beam, radiating with horrifying thermal energy. The shot connected perfectly, enveloping Yukito in an enormous burst of scarlet power. From appearances, he had simply ceased to exist. He was launched clear across the area, colliding with the solid rock wall hard enough to cause a visible fissure. It was a violent impact that was genuinely difficult to witness. He crumpled onto the ground amid a heap of debris, appearing completely motionless. The force of that particular energy strike was frankly excessive, possibly even in poor taste. Through a mouthful of blood, he muttered that everything was fine. The fact that he was still awake and torquing was a genuine miracle after receiving that kind of punishment. He managed to bring up his status screen with a trembling grasp. Although his spine hadn't snapped, his health gauge was definitely flashing a critical red warning. A close shot of his eye revealed the truly dire circumstances. He was losing strength rapidly as the golems began to approach for the finishing blow. The giant automaton loomed over him, its central core radiating light as it prepared another powerful discharge. He was essentially defenseless, lying prone on the stone ground. He made a weak attempt to drag himself across the floor, but his physical functions were completely shutting down. His eyes began to roll back as he lost consciousness. He bellows like a stepped-on cat because those insides are throwing a very violent retirement party right now. The scenery adopts a lovely crimson palette when the man impersonates a human volcano, signaling a body currently unsubscribing from life, rising on legs made of wobbly jelly. Our hero inhales deeply in a chamber reeking of burnt rocks and iron-flavored failure. His protagonist is dangling by a single dental floss strand, squinting at those shiny metal jerks through very dizzy eyes. Tightening a scarlet-stained hand, he wears a look of stubbornness, firmly deciding against becoming fertilizer in this dingy basement grave. Nerve endings are screaming so loudly that lunch is requesting an emergency exit from an unhappy stomach. Glaring at that loot box with massive attitude, he figures that misery is just a spicy seasoning once grown to enjoy. Memories of a previous tragic existence flood back, proving that nearly 9 decades of anemic shadows feel quite cozy. A rebellious howl escapes his lips, eyes glowing like angry LEDs, while converting old mistakes into high-voltage combat fuel. Recalling 7 decades of being labeled a total loser stings much more than getting sizzled by a fancy futuristic light show. Screaming toward those giant robots about the kitten-like strikes, the gore-drenched visage suggests the man officially joined the crazy club. Charging ahead, he slaps a palm onto the prize bucks, gambling everything on either a massive win or a funeral. Yelling that this minor inconvenience is hardly a struggle, the warrior pries the lid open like one possessed by pure spite. Brilliant rays burst from the container when he grabs that loot, forcing any darkness to retreat like a scared little puppy. Tucked within is a gorgeous azure and gilded arm guard, radiating magical energy resembling sparkling, melted space juice from the heavens. Flashing a red-toothed smile of victory, Yukito realizes he finally grabbed a cheat code needed to beat this rigged encounter. Zooming in on the wrist reveals dusty age and overwhelming might, being the secret prize Kaido totally missed out on. Those rock monsters are topped off with electricity, preparing a friendship laser designed to turn every single molecule here into toast. Predictably, the boy strapped that shiny thing on, forcing yellow glows to dance around the limb as the item accepts its owner. Standing tall while radiating ridiculous amounts of Sapphire power, the gore-drenched visage mimics some legendary battle deity, confirming he possesses the grit to live through upcoming carnage. Yukito hit the absolute motherlode by obtaining a teleportation cuff, which serves as the perfect escape route from a disastrous situation. System notifications verify this legendary trinket enables instant travel, making it a complete rule breaker during high-stakes boss encounters. Despite looking like a human strawberry smoothie, our hero is pumped because that jewelry is exactly what a messy life requires. The giant digital window appears requesting permission to activate travel gear, and he is hitting that confirmation button with extreme prejudice. Old stony statues are hovering uncomfortably close, with one winding up a giant punch of doom, suggesting it is time to leave. Well, naturally, the problem exists because Yukito picked the wrong job regarding that toy, resulting in a huge 50% debuff affecting personal success. That rocky giant is staring him down with very mean vibes, focusing its gaze for a moment where blinking would be a mistake. More terrible updates arrive stating a Marna pool is embarrassingly shallow, causing the game to ruthlessly chop odds of success into tiny pieces. Yukito gazes directly at the end while Ascension cliffside looms above, placing his entire existence on a single high-stakes gamble of luck. Check out those pathetic odds, the tiny 15% chance, which would mean certain doom for anyone lacking Yukito's freakishly high fortune stats. He extends his arm and activates the bracer, causing the glowing blue circles to rapidly expand around his wrist for a high-stakes moment where success means living and failure means turning into a smudge. The mechanical giant launches a massive green energy beam, a powerful blast that should have reduced Yukito to a pile of smoking ashes. The floor explodes in a violent eruption of rock and light, leaving the golems completely confident that they have successfully finished the fight. Take a look at the details on the gauntlet as it hits maximum power. The Marna circles are spinning frantically to execute this precise teleportation. The warp successfully activates, and Yukito vanishes in a burst of azure energy just as the beam incinerates the exact spot where he had been standing. He reappears directly behind one of the enormous titans, with his silver sword already shining brightly, prepared for a fast counterattack. Truly a high-speed flanking maneuver. The close-up view shows our protagonist completely locked in and focused. He might be battered and bruised, but those green eyes clearly indicate he refuses to quit. The second golem immediately rotates its glowing optical sensor toward him. These massive stone constructs possess surprisingly terrifying reflexes. Yukito takes a hit from an unexpected red energy beam that completely catches him off guard, and that impact is definitely going to require some serious first aid. He slams into the solid rock wall with enough force to create a huge crater, proving this battle has devolved into a painful, high-stakes game of ping-pong. He manages to stay on his feet, though he admits these golems are ridiculously durable, having survived the earlier explosions. It's time for a new strategy, or perhaps just another teleportation. He quickly decides the situation is fine and reactivates the bracer, looking like he just received a sudden boost of stamina. Another successful warp sends him zigzagging through the air, essentially allowing him to leverage his luck and spam a low percentage skill as if it were a standard attack. He drives his sword down, creating a green energy pulse that stuns his adversaries. He's accustomed to repetitive grinding, so this constant action just feels like business as usual. Yukito is swatted again, flying through the dark chamber like a piece of garbage. These golems are certainly not playing fair today. He grunts heavily upon hitting the ground, looking like he has reached his absolute physical limit. He can only endure so many blows from a high-level boss before his life bar hits rock bottom. He stares down the two mechanical giants, taking deep breaths for one final, desperate push. The sheer difference in size during this conflict is absolutely ridiculous. Both golems are closing in on his position, looking completely relentless like the Terminators from the movies. It's 2 against 1, and Yukito is looking very isolated right now. The system begins calculating data as he readies the wristband one more time. This last teleportation attempt is truly do or die. The warp succeeds, and he reappears directly above his target's head, projecting an aura of complete dominance. He unleashes a gigantic blue energy slash that cuts through the surrounding darkness, funneling every last bit of remaining mana into this powerful swing. The golem's eye glows a terrifying crimson as it attempts to track him during the middle of the attack. It's far too late for that, unfortunately. He connects perfectly. The blue energy slices right through the golem's dense stone armor like butter. Yukito lands between the two giants, looking like he's about to completely lose his mind. He keeps repeating the attack, over and over, like a man possessed. He grips his silver sword so tightly that his knuckles turn stark white. His pure determination is the only thing currently keeping him in this brutal fight. He screams at the top of his lungs that giving up is not an option. He is now glowing with a strange green light, making him appear far more monstrous than the golems themselves. A heady thud reverberates as he lands yet another direct hit. He has essentially transformed the standard boss encounter into a deeply personal grudge match. He unleashes a continuous storm of blue energy slashes against the golem's cranium. The incredible speed of his offensive maneuvers is truly breathtaking. He successfully warps again, blinking around the entire room so quickly that the golems cannot even successfully lock their sensors onto him. Yukito is suspended in midair, the silver blade ready to deliver the final killing blow. The dramatic lighting makes him appear utterly magnificent at this precise moment. The vibrant amethyst and magenta surge obliterates the chamber, suggesting the golem heart just suffered a catastrophic meltdown. He cleaves the detonation in hard fear of flawless warp maneuver, showcasing gaming skills that are practically cheating. His gaze locks onto an emerald node, the ultimate vulnerability that spells doom for this oversized stone statue. With a flurry of azure strikes, he shreds the boss into scrap metal, playing this fight like a master surgeon, plunging through a sapphire rift to reposition. He handles that warp accessory with a terrifying level of finesse. The golems appear baffled by his vanishing act, unaware that the pine-sized menace is currently looming above them. Yukito descends like a meteor from the rafters, seizing the high ground for a drop that definitely hurts. Despite being a sweaty mess of gore, his wicked smirk implies he is gambling everything on a lucky critical hit. Both stone titans glance upward, their optics locked onto their falling doom as the final curtain call begins. Landing between the giants like a seasoned shinobi, he makes the art of motion blur look incredibly stylish. With intense precision during his warp transit, he commits to his unconventional strategy hoping for a massive payout. Magic rings orbit his palm for one final surge, dumping every ounce of his remaining stamina into this teleport. He vanishes into a translucent vapor trail, leaving those lumbering constructs with zero hope of tracking him. A clean strike occurs as he manifests atop the monster, driving his steel claymore downward with lethal intent. The violet power source is fractured and splintering, mere moments away from an inevitable system total failure. Utilizing a mystical azure disc to vault skyward, he prepares his body for a signature finishing maneuver. Perched upon the stony beast, his metallic blade radiates a searing white aura that signifies the end is near. Executing his own sting strike, he aims to outshine Kito by demonstrating the superior version of the technique. He buries his steel into the creature, generating a concussive blast that shakes the very foundations of reality. A golden geyser of radiance erupts from the corpse, confirming his absurd luck just earned him the jackpot. He looms over the shattered debris of his mechanical foe, looking cooler than a cucumber despite the bleeding. Zooming in on the optic, the crimson glow dissipates as the synthetic consciousness of the titan finally expires, preparing his concluding melee blow. His weapon hums with a stellar frequency capable of slicing through time. Yukito offers a bloodied, crazed smile while roaring that his spirit remains uncrushed by this absolute raid. The survivor attempts to unleash a desperate solar beam, but the attempt is tragically futile and Oval is slow. A chromatic blade swipe bisects the behemoth perfectly, providing the most therapeutic victory scene in this dungeon. The tight frame captures our champion looking utterly wrecked, possessing neither magic nor physical strength remaining now. The final antiquity shatters into a heap of smoldering dust, leaving the arena blessed with unexpected silence. Yukito slumps into the debris, entirely depleted and resting amidst the wreckage of his most heroic triumph. A crimson status alert flashes on his wrist requesting a recharge, proving he squeezed that tiny margin of victory. He sprawled across the cold stone, panting like a marathon runner who sprinted through a volcano. Yet that doofy grin remains fixed on his battered face. Notifications flood his view as Yukito Takahashi crushes that ancient stone brute twice, netting enough experience to make a professional gamer weep with envy. The grand reveal is finally here as our hero secures the legendary L-rank elixir, the ultimate prize he has been chasing through this digital nightmare. Zooming in on his iris reveals the pure, unadulterated relief of a man who traded his entire past for this one shiny moment of victory. Feast your eyes on that glowing emerald potion, a fancy glass vial containing the literal miracle his mother requires to keep kicking the bucket. Yukito hauls his weary carcass upright, looking like he lost a fight with a lawnmower, but his expression screams that his family legacy is secured. He pops the seal and downs the liquid faster than a college student at a frat party, desperately needing that medicinal buzz to survive this dungeon. As he chugs the glowing sludge, neon energy swirls around him like a festive light show, effectively topping off his empty health gauge. He exhales a blissful sigh, savoring the refreshing sensation of a full restoration that hits better than a double shot of espresso. A gargantuan column of verdant radiance bursts from his frame, proving that this high-grade potion is leaking more magic than his body can contain. Sparkling green stardust gathers around his boots, acting like a celestial tail to stitch him back into a perfectly pristine condition. Those nasty gashes evaporate in an instant, finally scrubbing away the agonizing memories of his previous 8 decades of hardship. Plopping back onto the debris, he looks entirely rejuvenated and ready to party, having somehow pulled off the impossible double raid victory. Radiant sunbeams pierce the shattered ceiling to spotlight him amid the wreckage, creating a cinematic finish for such a messy, violent scrap. A tight shot on his bright eye shows a clear gaze full of potential, proving he is no longer the sad sack failure of yesteryear. He flashes a cheeky, smug smirk, clearly shocked he still has a pulse, and honestly, betting against this guy seems like a losing financial strategy. He rises amidst the crumbling remains with casual ease, having stomped the 20th floor and just warming up his destructive potential. New titles pop up like spam ads, getting him massive vitality boosts, which is a sweet reward for someone who just stayed into the abyss. The loot keeps piling up with extra strength and dexterity stats, turning our favorite solo player into a torking tank of destruction. Scrolling through his digital backpack, he spots the elixir sitting pretty, signaling that his lifelong dream is finally sitting within arm's reach. A gentle smile spreads across his lips as he gazes at the bottle, deciding that ever painful bruise was a small prize for this treasure. Standing tall in the boss room graveyard, Yukito catches his breath while preparing for his next grand objective in this subterranean hellscape. His sharp gaze locks onto a suspicious item resting on the floor, prompting a swift sprint to investigate the hidden clue. He retrieves a shredded piece of white fabric soaked in gore, his expression turning grim as the origin of the cloth becomes clear. Surveying the blood-drenched rags of Kido, he realizes the rat has vanished but left behind a glaring trail of his treacherous misdeeds. Yukito squinting at the fabric reveals a flicker of genuine shock, clearly finding something truly baffling tucked away in the bloodstains. The camera pans over the crimson-splattered cloak, a haunting souvenir showing just how far the petty rival would go for a grudge. Contemplating whether this bloody evidence suffices to track Kido, he proves that he is a master strategist playing a deep game for justice. Clutching the incriminating rag tightly, he marches toward the colossal ornate gates, fully finished with his bloody work on this level. He plants his hands against the massive stone portals and heaves, finding that even for a Silda-tier hero, these doors are stubbornly heavy. Sunlight blinds his eyes as the heavy portal grounds open, making our protagonist radiate main character energy like a total fashion icon. Yukito emerges from the dungeon shadows, cutting a dramatic figure against the light, finally trading his dark cavern prison for reality. Once back on solid ground, he races toward the Dilt headquarters, determined to file his paperwork and unmask the dastardly thief. The desk clerk gasps in horror when Yukito dumps the gore-stained cloth, clearly unaccustomed to such macabre items appearing on her clean desk. She stammers in a state of complete shock, promising to fetch a superior, effectively turning the guild's peaceful afternoon into a chaotic mess. Yukito acknowledges he has crossed a major threshold, shedding his rookie skin to become the legendary slayer who dismantled a notorious criminal boss. A stern bureaucrat in a fancy suit appears, craving a media spotlight for our hero, signaling that his high-speed celebrity train has officially departed. Yukito ignores the glitzy fame, telling the suit to postpone the press session since he has actual family lives to protect today. He dashes through Tokyo streets amid flying cherry blossoms, running so wildly that bystanders assume a fly must be chasing his heels. His shoes become a blurry whirlwind as he sprints homeward, knowing every ticking second is vital while clutching his pockets of hope. Pedestrians spot the local celebrity and gossip about whether that is actually Yukito Takahashi, the mountain-crushing hero roaming the concrete jungle. Huge digital screens highlight his record-breaking speed on the 20th level, confirming he is officially the city's most impressive dungeon-crawling superstar. He reaches his apartment just as twilight descends, having moved with blistering speed to ensure the real healing operation could commence immediately. Kicking the door wide open with a dramatic thud, he steps inside at last with a precious life-saving item in his hand. Seeing Mizomi and his mother looking vibrant and healthy is a stunning change of pace from the bloody dungeon chaos he just survived. Yukito presents the magical elixir with an exhausted yet victorious grin, proving that he truly performed a feat of total impossibility. They head straight to the hospital, where the facility gleams with newfound optimism beneath the expanse of a lovely clear sky. The family gathers inside the medical office while the physician reviews the comprehensive lab reports with a very clinical and professional air. Yukito and Nozomi lean forward in anxious anticipation, their brows damp with sweat as they await news after that exhausting temporal rollback. The doctor declares that the illness has been eradicated entirely, delivering a thunderous victory that marks the ultimate win for the Takahashi clan. Tears of joy flow as the siblings scream in sheer disbelief, their expressions painting a perfect picture of absolute, unadulterated emotional relief. The medic confirms it with a nod, praising the elixir as truly miraculous, which is basically the scientific method of admitting literal magic exists. The siblings embrace their mother tightly, reveling in the realization that after such hardships, they are finally a fully restored and healthy family. They celebrate the wonderful miracle with shouts of joy, filling the small room with a level of happiness that confirms they finally beat life. Mung gazes at her boy with eyes brimming with deep appreciation, acknowledging he finally reached a goal that eluded him for 85 long years. Her soft expression of thanks means more to him than any shiny treasures or rare S-rank gear hidden within those treacherous dungeons. Yukito remains silent with his face obscured by shadows, choosing to savor this rare and quiet moment of total and complete triumph. With a warm and sincere smile, he thanks his mother for raising them through the years, finally finding inner peace regarding his history. The trio stands together as a symbol of familial affection, reflecting on how he finally finished that lunch chapter left open for 80 years. We catch a fleeting look at the older Yukito from his past life, still wearing that same mask of relief despite his arduous journey. Mizomi giggles mischievously, teasing him about his oval serious demeanor. She points out they are in front of the doctor, effectively shattering the tension. She winks cheekily and tells him to save his intensity for later. She's already busy planning a huge party, truly the vibrant heart of the family. Yukito laughs, agreeing with her assessment. He realizes he's finally able to relax, for the first time in either of his current lives. Nozomi states honestly that her older brother sometimes completely ignores his surroundings. She's not wrong. He has a bad habit of getting completely focused, but then the pleasant atmosphere suddenly vanishes. A dark purple light fills the room, signaling that something terrible is about to happen. Suddenly, everyone else in the vicinity completely freezes. Time itself appears to have stopped dead, leaving Yukito as the only one capable of moving. A mysterious figure wearing white armor and a lawn red cape appears. They look exactly like a top-tier adventurer, and they definitely seem hostile. The individual looks down at the frozen family, calling them a gentle and sincere group. Their voice sounds completely cold and detached. The blonde adventurer sighs dramatically, stating that this specific family must be made miserable. This guy is a total downer, and frankly, quite unnerving. He actually looks genuinely sad about it, which somehow makes his actions even worse. He clearly believes he is performing some sort of unavoidable cruelty. He begins plotting a false cardiac arrest for the family. He intends to make it appear to be a tragic but natural death that the grieving relatives will simply accept. He positions himself over Nozomi, looking utterly ruthless. The supposed hero is actually nothing more than a heartless killer. He officially pronounces the cause of death as cardiac arrest, but then pauses abruptly, looking confused. Something has just interfered with his flawless scheme. Yukito is radiating a ferocious purple energy. He has broken free from the temporal lock, and he looks absolutely enraged. Yukito parries the assassin's sword with his own, generating a massive explosion of power. He will not allow anyone to hurt his family. The blonde man is completely stunned. He simply cannot believe that a novice managed to block his assault. Yukito lets out a snarl, demanding to know what exactly this guy is trying to pull. He has fully activated his protective older sibling persona. They are locked in an intense duel, their blades creating a storm of energy. The blonde man is truly bewildered, questioning how Yukito is able to move. Yukito's eyes widen as he finally recognizes his opponent. He rapidly starts to put all the different pieces of the puzzle together. He realizes he is staring directly at the renowned hero himself. This person is not just a random killer, he is a world-famous protector. Let's analyze his status. Kazurato armor. Adventure ranking number 1. He is literally the most powerful man in the entire world. We see a flashback of Kazurato standing over a massive pile of defeated monsters. He looks like a savior, but we now know the dark truth. He offers a playful wink, grandly introducing himself as Cosmic Justicer armor. This fellow is a huge narcissist, clearly obsessed with his own publicity. Yukito notices his adventure tag. It's a rainbow-colored, absolutely genuine badge. This guy is as legitimate as they come within the guild structure. Yukito is sweating profusely, wondering why the hero would attempt to harm Nozomi. The most powerful individual in existence is trying to murder his sister, and nothing makes sense anymore. Kazurato simply grins smugly, informing Yukito that it's now his opportunity to ask questions. He's playing games even though he's actively holding a deadly weapon. The hero clarifies that they are located in a void barrier, a space where time and reality become warped. He explains that only a select few can even function here. He delivers a significant revelation. Only people who have experienced the death of the spirit are capable of moving in this location. Yukito's 85 years of torment are finally proving advantageous. Kazurato narrows one eye, adopting the pose of a meticulous investigator. He states there is only one logically derived conclusion to all available evidence. He asks if Yukito is a regression character, confirming his suspicions. The secret is completely exposed, and the world's strongest man has identified our protagonist. This completely alters the situation.